Today, we leave the present behind and walk together through memories that are no longer our own. Feel the cool marble of ancient temples beneath your feet as we enter the mystical landscapes of ancient Greece, where gods and mortals shared the fragile boundary between waking and dreams. If you feel this journey has touched your night, consider joining us again, and tell us where you are listening from. Now silence the world around you, dim the lights, and breathe deeply. We are about to dream of the past. I am a dreamer in ancient Greece. The night wraps around my simple dwelling like a cloak woven by Nyx herself, goddess of night. The darkness here is different from what you might know. Deeper, more alive, unmarred by the artificial lights of your modern world. As I prepare for sleep, I am acutely aware that I stand at the threshold of sacred space. For us Greeks, sleep is not merely rest but a journey, a crossing into realms where gods may choose to walk alongside mortals. My sleeping pallet is simple by your standards, stuffed with dried herbs and soft wool, covered with linen dyed the gentle blue of the Aegean. Yet even in humble homes like mine, we prepare for sleep with reverence. I pour a small libation of watered wine onto the household altar, a few drops offered to Hypnos, god of sleep, and his son Morpheus, the shaper of dreams. Grant me peaceful rest, I whisper. And should the gods wish to speak, open my ears to their wisdom. This ritual is not superstition, but acknowledgement of what all Greeks know to be true. The gods walk freely through the landscapes of our dreams. When our conscious minds surrender to sleep, the divine finds easier passage into mortal thought. Why else would Zeus, father of gods and men, so often choose to communicate his will through dreams? Why would Apollo send his prophetic visions to sleeping priestesses rather than those fully awake? I settle onto my bed as the last oil lamp burns low. Through the small window of my dwelling, I can see stars scattered across the night sky like the jewelry of Olympians carelessly strewn across a black mantle. Each constellation tells a story, divine narratives written in light. There is Orion the hunter, there the crown of Ariadne, there the lyre of Apollo. These cosmic tales accompany me into sleep, reminding me that I exist within a universe alive, with divine presence. Unlike you moderns who often fear the vulnerability of sleep, we Greeks embrace it as opportunity. In waking life, catching a direct glimpse of divinity can blind or burn a mortal, as poor Semele discovered when she beheld Zeus in his full glory. But in dreams, we may safely encounter the gods in forms our minds can comprehend. The divine adjusts itself to our sleeping perceptions, allowing communion impossible in waking hours. I close my eyes and focus on my breathing, feeling the boundary between worlds grow thin. This transitional moment has its own deity. Hermes, not only messenger of the gods and guide of souls to the underworld, but also the divine escort who leads us into the realm of dreams. I silently ask for his guidance tonight, hoping he might direct my sleeping mind toward divine encounter, rather than the meaningless shadows that sometimes populate common dreams. There is an art to inviting significant dreams, techniques passed through generations. Before sleep, I have eaten lightly, a simple meal of bread dipped in olive oil, a few figs, a cup of watered wine. Heavy food disturbs the soul's receptivity. I have also placed a small branch of laurel beneath my pillow, the sacred plant of Apollo, believed to attract prophetic dreams. Some seekers sleep with moonstone or clear quartz to amplify dream clarity, though I prefer simpler methods. As consciousness begins to fade, I am aware of the profound difference between what my people call the onar and the hyper. The dream vision versus the waking vision. Both are ways of seeing, yet dream sight often reveals truths invisible to waking eyes. Did not Agamemnon receive battle instructions through dreams sent by Zeus? Did not Aeneas learn of his destiny to found a new city through divine dream guidance? The Orphic initiates teach that during sleep, our psyche, our soul, is partially freed from bodily constraints, able to wander in realms closer to the divine. This is why dreams sometimes bring knowledge of distant events or premonitions of things to come. The soul, temporarily released from the prison of flesh, touches the eternal before returning with fragments of greater truth, albeit often cloaked in symbol and metaphor. I feel myself crossing that sacred boundary now. That liminal space where Hypnos holds gentle dominion. Unlike his twin brother Thanatos, god of death, Hypnos claims us only temporarily, borrowing our consciousness each night before returning it with the dawn. His touch brings not oblivion but transformation, a daily small death and rebirth that echoes the greater mysteries. The world begins to shift and change around me as sleep deepens. Ordinary objects in my dwelling dissolve or transform. The water pitcher becomes a silver spring. The wooden beams overhead now branches of an ancient oak. This shifting landscape signals that I have entered the outer courtyard of dream space, where ordinary logic loosens its grip and divine presence may more easily enter. I wait in this fluid realm, expectant, yet surrendered. Whether the gods choose to visit my dreams tonight is not within my control. They come according to their own purposes, their own divine timing. Sometimes they bring guidance for community or personal decisions. Other times they simply remind us of their eternal presence in our ephemeral lives. Occasionally, if one is truly fortunate, they bring healing or creative inspiration that transforms a mortal life. The paths of dream open before me now, beckoning me deeper. Perhaps tonight I will walk with Athena, her gray eyes illuminating wisdom I cannot grasp while awake. Perhaps Dionysus will lead me through wild landscapes of ecstatic possibility. Or perhaps it will be Apollo, bringing prophecies, cloaked in poetry and light. Whoever comes, if indeed any divine presence chooses to visit, I am ready, my sleeping mind open to whispers from Olympus. The last threads of conscious thought begin to unravel as I surrender fully to Hypnos' embrace. The boundary between my identity and the dream world thins, becomes permeable. I am no longer merely myself, but a vessel, a temporary dwelling place where gods might choose to rest as they walk through mortal dreams. This surrender is not weakness, but sacred opportunity. The chance to receive wisdom from those who see beyond the narrow confines of human perception. Sleep claims me now, and with it comes the first shimmer of divine footsteps at the edge of awareness. The white stones of the Asclepieion gleam under moonlight as I approach the sacred precinct. After days of travel, I have finally reached this famous healing sanctuary of Asclepius at Epidaurus. My body weary, but my spirit alert with anticipation. Like countless suffering pilgrims before me, I come seeking what conventional healers could not provide: divine intervention through the medium of dreams. The sanctuary spreads across the hillside, a complex of buildings dedicated to the god who bridges the realms of medicine and miracle. The central temple rises among healing pools and circular tholos structures, surrounded by colonnaded dormitories where the sick come to sleep and dream. This is no ordinary place of worship, but a gateway where the god of healing may cross from divine realms into mortal dreams. A priest greets me at the entrance, his kind eyes assessing my condition. The pain in my chest that has plagued me for months is invisible to others, but he seems to perceive it nonetheless. "You have come for enkoimesis," he says. "It is not a question, but a recognition of purpose. This ritual of temple sleep, incubation, as some call it, is why most pilgrims journey here, seeking dreams in which Asclepius himself might appear to heal or prescribe treatment. First you must be purified," he explains, leading me toward the sacred spring. The god comes only to those properly prepared in body and spirit. The purification rituals begin immediately. I bathe in the cold, clear waters of the sacred spring, feeling the dust of travel washing away along with the accumulated concerns of ordinary existence. As the water streams over my body, I imagine it carrying away not just physical impurity, but the miasma of illness itself, preparing me as a clean vessel for divine visitation. After bathing, I don white garments provided by the temple attendants, simple, unadorned robes that mark all patients as equals before the god. Rich or poor, citizen or foreigner. Within these precincts, we are all simply supplicants awaiting the god's attention. An elderly woman beside me has traveled from Syracuse. A merchant from Thessaly sits nearby. A child from a local village waits with his mother. Illness and hope recognize no boundaries of geography or status. The priest leads us through preliminary offerings at the main altar. Honey cakes, incense, and for those who can afford it, small animal sacrifices. I offer a dove, watching as its blood stains the altar stones. Life for life, the priest murmurs. A token exchange for the healing you seek. I am not squeamish about such sacrifices as you modern dreamers might be. This is the economy of divine favor that has sustained my people for generations. As evening approaches, we are guided through the sanctuary to view its healing inscriptions. Stone tablets recording successful treatments and miraculous cures granted by the god in dreams. These testimonials line the walls of the Abaton, the sleeping hall where we will spend the night. I read them eagerly, hoping to find cases similar to my own. Ambrosia of Athens, blind in one eye. She mocked the healing cures as implausible. Yet when she slept here, the god appeared and promised to heal her if she would dedicate a silver pig to the temple, as acknowledgement of her ignorance. When day broke, she left healed. Euippus had carried a spear point in his jaw for 6 years. As he slept in the temple, the god extracted the spear point and placed it in his hands. He woke holding the foreign object, his wound healed. These testimonials are not mere propaganda but offerings of gratitude, each representing a night where divine presence entered mortal dreams and left healing in its wake. I run my fingers over the inscribed letters, wondering if someday my own story might be carved in stone for future supplicants to read. As darkness falls, an unexpected element of the healing sanctuary reveals itself, the sacred serpents that dwell within the temple precincts. These are not ordinary reptiles, but manifestations of Asclepius himself. For the snake is his sacred animal and symbol. Temple attendants bring them from their special chambers, allowing them to move freely through the Abaton where we will sleep. I feel a momentary flutter of fear as one large serpent glides past my assigned sleeping place, its scales gleaming. In the lamplight, the priest notices my apprehension. "Do not fear," he assures me. "The god's serpents are healers, not harmers. Sometimes Asclepius works through their touch rather than through dreams alone. Many have awakened to find a serpent resting against their afflicted body part, divine healing flowing through the contact." This practice would seem strange, even frightening to outsiders, but within the context of the sanctuary, it feels right. These serpents are conduits of divine power, their ability to shed skin and renew themselves a perfect symbol for the healing we all seek. I settle onto my simple pallet, aware that these sacred creatures may visit during the night, perhaps even becoming the form in which the god himself appears in dreams. Before the lamps are extinguished, temple priests move among us, offering a special drink of herb-infused water from a spring that flows only within the sanctuary grounds. Some say this potion helps open the mind to divine visitation. Others believe it simply calms the body to receive restful sleep where healing can occur. Whatever its purpose, I drink gratefully, tasting herbs both familiar and unknown. "Remember," the head priest instructs us all, "whatever you see in dreams tonight, whatever instructions you receive, must be remembered exactly and reported to the temple interpreters in the morning. The god's prescriptions are precise and must be followed faithfully for healing to manifest." The lamps are extinguished one by one until only the moonlight filtering through high windows illuminates the sleeping chamber. Around me lie dozens of other patients on similar pallets, some already drifting toward sleep, others whispering prayers to Asclepius. The collective hope in the room is palpable, a tangible presence almost as real as the stone walls surrounding us. I close my eyes and attempt to quiet my mind, focusing on the pain in my chest that has brought me here. Rather than trying to ignore it as I usually do, tonight I attend to it fully, mentally offering it to Asclepius as the sight needing his divine attention. See me, I pray silently. Visit my dreams and show me the path to healing. Sleep approaches differently here than in ordinary places. Perhaps it is the sacred setting, perhaps the herb-infused water, or perhaps simply the culmination of ritual preparation and focused intention. Whatever the cause, I feel myself sliding toward dream consciousness with unusual clarity, aware of the transition between waking and sleeping in a way rarely experienced. As Hypnos claims me, my last conscious awareness is of something smooth and cool sliding across my arm. One of the sacred serpents, perhaps, acknowledging my presence in this threshold space between mortal suffering and divine intervention. Then consciousness dissolves, and I enter fully into the realm where gods walk through human dreams, where Asclepius might choose to visit those who sleep within his sacred walls. Light filters through my closed eyelids, a golden radiance too brilliant to be the morning sun. Even before I open my dream eyes, I know he has come. Apollo, far shooter, lord of light and prophecy, has chosen to walk through the landscape of my sleep. The luminosity precedes him always, for unlike other gods who may disguise their approach, Apollo announces his presence with unmistakable brilliance. I find myself standing in a place that is neither fully temple nor entirely wilderness, but someplace in between. A sacred grove where laurel trees form living columns, and the sky above serves as ceiling. This dream temple feels more authentic than any stone structure built by human hands. In dreaming, we see places as they truly are in divine reality, not merely as we have constructed them in the waking world. Apollo appears not suddenly but gradually, as if assembling himself from particles of light. First I perceive his outline, then details emerge, his eternally youthful face, the golden bow slung across his shoulders, the laurel crown upon his head. His beauty is terrible in its perfection, his gaze direct and penetrating. Even in dreams, meeting a god's eyes requires courage. Many dreamers look away, but those who seek prophecy must learn to withstand divine scrutiny. You have called me through incense and music, he says, his voice resonating not in my dream ears, but throughout my entire being. You have slept upon my oracle stones and worn my sacred laurel. What truth do you seek, mortal dreamer? This is the nature of Apollonian. Dream visitation, direct, purposeful, illuminating. Unlike dream encounters with Dionysus, which leave the dreamer ecstatic but confused, or Hermes, which offer truth wrapped in riddles, Apollo brings clarity. His prophecies may be challenging to accept, but rarely difficult to comprehend. This is why so many seek him through temple sleep before important decisions or at times of community crisis. I have prepared for this encounter through specific rituals known to attract Apollo's attention. For 3 days before sleep, I purified myself through abstinence from wine and certain foods. I bathed in water infused with bay leaves, Apollo's sacred plant. Most importantly, I spent hours playing the kithara, for music opens channels between human consciousness and Apollo's divine frequency. No god is more attuned to harmony than the one who leads the muses in their celestial songs. Now, standing before him in this dream space, I must frame my question carefully. Apollo's prophecies respond to the question asked, not necessarily the answer needed. Countless stories tell of mortals who received true but misleading prophecies because they failed to ask wisely. King Croesus learned this when he asked if he should go to war, and Apollo answered that a great empire would fall, not specifying it would be Croesus's own. Lord of Truth, I address him, choosing words with care. Show me not just the path ahead, but the one that leads to greatest harmony between my purpose and the divine order. Apollo raises his hand, and suddenly we are no longer in the Grove Temple, but standing at a crossroads illuminated by his radiance. Each path stretches toward different futures, visible as scenes playing out at their distant ends. Unlike the murky symbolism of ordinary dreams, these visions possess supernatural clarity. I see potential consequences of choices not yet made, branches of possible futures stemming from decision points not yet reached. This is Apollo's gift in dreams, foresight without the cryptic delivery of his oracle at Delphi. While his priestess there speaks in riddles that require interpretation, his dream visitations often provide direct insight. Perhaps this is because a dreaming mind can perceive truth more directly than a waking one, or perhaps because Apollo chooses a different mode of communication when entering the intimate space of mortal dreams. Observe carefully, Apollo instructs, for I show this vision once only. The paths before me shift and blur, resolving into a single scene. I watch events unfold that have not yet occurred in my waking life. Conversations with people I have not yet met. Challenges I have not yet faced. Unlike ordinary dreams that rehash past experiences or play out subconscious fears, this prophetic vision contains information impossible for my mortal mind to know independently. This is the true mark of divine dream visitation, knowledge that could not come from within oneself. Apollo's prophecies differ from other divine communications in their clarity and precision. When Dionysus visits dreamers, he brings emotional truths cloaked in wild symbolism. When Athena enters dreams, she often provides strategic insights through complex scenarios. But Apollo shows exactly what will or may happen, illuminating rather than obscuring. His very name, after all, means not many, but one. Singular, direct, unambiguous. As the vision ends, Apollo touches my forehead with 2 fingers. The contact burns like ice and fire simultaneously, marking me internally in ways invisible to waking eyes, but recognized by those sensitive to divine influence. You have seen, he states simply. Now you must remember. This is the greatest challenge of prophetic dreams, retaining their content upon waking. Ordinary dreams fade quickly as consciousness returns, but divine communications must be preserved. This is why dream oracles employ specific techniques to help supplicants remember their visions. At Delphi and other Apollonian sanctuaries, priests stand ready at dawn to record prophecies before they can fade from memory. Will I remember clearly, I ask, already feeling the dream's edges beginning to blur, as if some part of me senses approaching wakefulness. That depends on you, Apollo answers. Those who truly wish to see truth rarely forget it, though many prefer to let it fade rather than face its implications. His honesty is merciless, but never cruel. This too distinguishes Apollo's dream presence from other deities. Hermes might tease, Aphrodite seduce, Ares intimidate, but Apollo simply illuminates, leaving mortals to squint against his brightness, or open their eyes wider to accommodate it. Before departing, Apollo does something unexpected. He draws his bow, that terrible golden weapon that once sent plague arrows raining upon the Achaean camp, and shoots a single shaft directly into my heart. In waking life, such an action would mean death, but in this dream realm, it feels like awakening within awakening. Each heartbeat now seems to pulse with lyrical rhythm, as if my very blood has become music. I have tuned you, Apollo explains, as one tunes a lyre. The prophecy will resonate within you until its fulfillment. You will neither forget nor misunderstand, though you remain free to heed or ignore. This is his final gift and challenge. Clarity, without compulsion. Unlike some gods who manipulate fate directly, Apollo merely illuminates its patterns, leaving mortals free to weave their own variations upon the revealed design. His prophecies are less commands than compositions, divine themes upon which human lives may improvise their own melodies. As he fades from my dream, once again becoming particles of light that disperse like golden mist, I understand something essential about prophetic dreams. They do not simply foretell future events but create resonance between mortal awareness and divine knowledge. Apollo has not merely visited my sleep, but established a connection that will continue vibrating subtly through my waking hours, influencing perceptions and decisions in ways both subtle and profound. I wake with the rising sun, Apollo's physical manifestation in the world, with every detail of the dream intact in my memory, as vivid as if it had been carved into my mind with a golden stylus. Unlike ordinary dreams that must be hastily recorded before fading, this prophetic vision remains perfectly preserved, a permanent impression left by divine contact upon mortal consciousness. This too is Apollo's gift, dreams that do not fade, but illuminate, prophecies that clarify rather than confuse, visions that reveal paths rather than obscuring them. In the light of day, his golden presence remains, a waking dream that continues guiding long after sleep has ended. I drift into sleep contemplating a difficult decision that has troubled my waking hours for many days. The question of whether to leave my ancestral home for opportunities in Athens weighs heavily on my mind, complicated by obligations to family and uncertainty about an unknown future. As consciousness fades, I silently seek wisdom, not knowing which deity, if any, might answer such an ordinary mortal's plea. The dream begins subtly, unlike Apollo's golden announcement or Dionysus's wild transformations. I find myself in a familiar olive grove near my home, yet somehow different. The trees taller, their silver-green leaves more luminous in a light that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere. The air carries a scent of clean stone, polished metal, and fresh olives, an unusual combination that alerts me to divine presence before I see her. She does not stride dramatically into my dream vision or arrive with thunderous proclamation. Instead, I gradually become aware that she has been sitting nearby all along, watching me with eyes the precise color of rain clouds over the Aegean. Athena, gray-eyed daughter of Zeus, weaver of wisdom and strategy, regards me with measured interest. Her presence feels simultaneously ancient and immediate, powerful yet controlled, the perfect embodiment of sophrosyne, that uniquely Greek ideal of excellence through moderation and self-knowledge. You seek clarity, she states, rather than asks, her voice neither masculine nor feminine but perfectly balanced between authority and compassion. Unlike the oracular pronouncements of Apollo or the emotion-laden communications of Aphrodite, Athena's dream speech carries the precision of a well-crafted argument and the practical weight of lived experience. I do, gray-eyed one, I acknowledge, surprised by my own boldness in addressing her directly. In waking life, I would prostrate myself before such divine presence, but dream logic allows a more direct communion. Athena sits beneath an olive tree, her sacred plant, which she gifted to Athens in her contest with Poseidon. She wears not the elaborate battle armor depicted in temple statues, but simpler attire suggesting both function and elegance. Only the aegis, that fearsome shield bearing the Gorgon's head, rests beside her, a reminder of her power held temporarily in abeyance. During this peaceful exchange, wisdom rarely comes as direct answers, she tells me, fingers moving as if weaving invisible threads. It emerges through questions properly framed and patiently considered. This is characteristic of Athena's approach in dreams. Unlike Apollo, who may deliver prophecies, or Asclepius, who provides specific healing instructions, Athena offers methods rather than solutions, teaching dreamers how to think rather than simply what to conclude. Her dream visitations focus on developing the mortal mind rather than merely directing its decisions. I will ask you questions, she continues, and through your answers, you will discover what you already know but have not yet recognized. What follows is a series of inquiries, each building upon the last, forming a kind of logical tapestry that reveals patterns previously invisible to me. She asks about my strengths, not with flattery, but with clinical assessment. She questions my understanding of Athens, testing knowledge against assumption. She probes my family connections, not with sentimentality, but with strategic consideration of obligations and opportunities. Throughout this dream dialogue, an owl perches silently on a branch above us, occasionally tilting its head as if assessing my responses. The bird's presence feels significant beyond its status as Athena's sacred animal. In Greek understanding, the owl sees clearly in darkness, a perfect metaphor for wisdom perceiving truth even in confusion. Its silent witness underscores the importance of observation before action, another core principle of Athenian thought. Unlike dreamers visited by Dionysus, who might wake with emotional revelations but confused memories, or those touched by Hermes, who often receive clever solutions without understanding their underlying principles, I find my mind becoming progressively more ordered through Athena's questioning. Thoughts that were tangled begin to straighten, like threads on a loom properly arranged before weaving begins. Now, Athena says when her questioning concludes, you will weave these elements together. She gestures, and suddenly a loom appears between us. This is no ordinary dream symbol, but a manifestation of Athena's particular domain as patron of weavers and crafters. The vertical threads, the warp, are already strung, representing fixed elements of my situation. Family ties, personal capabilities, external circumstances. But the horizontal threads, the weft, await my hand, representing choices that will create the final pattern. Begin, she instructs. And though I have only basic weaving skills in waking life, my dream hands move with unexpected confidence. As I pass the shuttle through the warp threads, each movement corresponds to a potential decision in my waking dilemma. The pattern emerging from these choices becomes increasingly clear, not as a direct answer, but as a strategic approach to my situation that honors both opportunity and obligation. Athena's dream lessons often take this form, practical metaphors that engage the dreamer in active problem-solving rather than passive reception of divine pronouncement. She teaches through participation, believing that wisdom earned through effort becomes integrated into the character in ways that simple answers never could. As the weaving nears completion, Athena leans forward to inspect my work. Her gaze is neither harsh nor indulgent, but perfectly balanced between critical assessment and appreciation of effort. This too reflects her essence, the goddess who values excellence achieved through disciplined application, rather than either rigid perfectionism or careless satisfaction. You see now? She asks, though it isn't really a question. I do see. The pattern I've woven under her guidance reveals a potential path forward that I hadn't previously considered. Neither simple abandonment of home nor refusal of opportunity, but a strategic approach that transforms apparent contradictions into complementary elements of a cohesive plan. Before the dream concludes, Athena does something unexpected. From beneath her simple cloak, she produces a small object and places it in my palm. An olive pit, unremarkable in appearance, but somehow weighty with significance. Plant this upon waking, she instructs. As it grows, so will your understanding. This tangible instruction differs from the abstract guidance that characterized most of our dream interaction. Greek dreamers understand such specific directives as boundary objects, actions that bridge dream wisdom and waking life, ensuring that divine insight isn't lost in the transition to consciousness. Temples dedicated to Athena contain many offerings from those who received such tokens in dreams and followed her instructions upon waking. As the dream begins to fade, Athena remains seated beneath her olive tree, the owl now perched upon her shoulder. Neither figure diminishes or transforms dramatically as happens with some divine dream visitors. Instead, it is my perception that gradually shifts. My dream consciousness slowly receding like an ebbing tide, until I am aware of lying once again upon my sleeping pallet in the waking world. Unlike the vivid but often confusing remnants of ordinary dreams, Athena's midnight wisdom leaves my mind clear and ordered. Her questions remain, not as fading dream fragments, but as structured thinking, tools I can continue applying in wakefulness. The strategy developed through our dream weaving persists not as a fixed solution, but as an approach, a way of thinking that can adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining its essential coherence. I rise and search immediately for an olive pit to plant, understanding that this physical action will anchor the dream's wisdom in waking reality. Athena's practical insight, delivered through the intimate medium of dream, becomes not merely an abstract divine encounter, but a transformative method for navigating life's complexities with the balanced wisdom she embodies. The hour grows late as I prepare my simple chamber for sleep. Unlike those who approach slumber carelessly, I understand its sacred nature, that in surrendering to rest, I enter the domain of a God no less powerful for his gentle touch. I arrange fresh poppies in a small clay vessel near my bed, their crimson petals bright against the whitewashed wall. Their scent, subtle yet pervasive, is pleasing to Hypnos, god of sleep, whom I hope to honor tonight. The ritual of preparing for sleep takes on deeper meaning when one recognizes it as an approach to divine territory. I pour a small libation of watered wine, adding a few drops of honey, traditional offerings to the gentler deities. Hypnos, son of night, brother of death, yet friend to mortals, I whisper. Receive my respect, and grant me peaceful passage through your realm. Sleep is not merely absence, but presence. Not unconsciousness, but altered consciousness, a different quality of awareness governed by its own divine power. We Greeks do not see sleep as mere biological necessity, but as a mysterious state where the soul operates by different laws, temporarily released from daylight's rational constraints. And governing this state is Hypnos, a god often overlooked in grand Olympian narratives, yet essential to both divine and mortal existence. As I drift toward his domain, the boundaries of my small room seem to dissolve. The walls recede into darkness, and I find myself approaching what appears to be a cave entrance overhung with night-blooming flowers. Their heavy fragrance permeates the air, sweet yet somehow soporific, making thought itself become languid and slow. Is this imagination, dream, or divine revelation? The distinction matters little in this threshold space between waking and sleeping. The cave opens before me, not a place of fearful darkness, but of gentle, embracing shadow. Unlike the bright visitations of Apollo, or the strategic clarity of Athena, an encounter with Hypnos begins with surrender to dimness, a willingness to see differently than in waking life. I enter hesitantly, aware that I approach the god on his own terms, in his own dwelling. Inside, I perceive a landscape both familiar and impossible. Beds of poppies bloom despite the absence of sunlight, their red petals luminous in the gloom. Streams of water dark as night yet somehow visible flow across the cavern floor, their sound a perfect lullaby, neither too loud nor too soft, complex enough to engage the mind, yet repetitive enough to release it. The air itself feels different. Here, heavy with peaceful intention, as if every breath draws tranquility deeper into the body. From deeper within the cave emerges a figure that seems composed partly of shadow, partly of substance. Hypnos approaches unhurriedly, his movements fluid as dreams themselves. Unlike the sharply defined appearances of other gods, his form shifts subtly as he moves, sometimes appearing as a beautiful youth, sometimes as a mature man in his prime, his features gentle yet distinct. Only his wings remain constant, not the bright feathered wings of Hermes or Eros, but wings of deepest velvet darkness, soft as night itself. You honor me with consciousness, he speaks, his voice resonating, not through the air, but directly within my mind. Most mortals come to me without awareness, passing my threshold without recognition. Indeed, most sleepers enter hypnosis realm without acknowledgement of its divine nature. They slip from wakefulness to sleep unaware of crossing sacred boundaries, treating as mundane what is in truth profound communion with cosmic forces. But those who study dreams and the mysteries of consciousness know better. Hypnos is no minor deity, but a primal force, born of night herself, older than the Olympians, who dominate our temples and festivals. I wish to understand your art, I tell him, surprised by my own directness. With other gods, such forwardness might provoke divine displeasure, but Hypnos seems pleased by the recognition of sleep as craft rather than mere unconsciousness. He gestures, and suddenly we stand beside a vast loom that stretches beyond perception, woven with threads that seem composed of both light and darkness. Each night, I weave for every mortal a unique tapestry, he explains. No two sleeps are identical, though many follow similar patterns. I watch, fascinated, as his fingers move across the threads. Where Apollo's prophecies illuminate and Athena's strategies organize, Hypnos creates something different, an artful suspension of ordinary consciousness that nonetheless serves essential functions. This is his domain. Neither the rational clarity of wakefulness nor the complete surrender of death, but the necessary middle territory where the mind processes, restores, and occasionally connects with divine wisdom. Your brother is Thanatos, I observe hesitantly, naming death himself. Hypnos nods, his expression serene rather than somber. Twins from the same mother, Night. Yet while mortals fear his embrace, they welcome mine. In this, we are opposites despite our kinship. This familial connection illuminates much about Greek understanding of sleep. We perceive it as death's gentler cousin, a temporary surrender rather than a permanent one, yet governed by related forces. The comparison appears in our poetry, our philosophy, our daily language. Sleep and death are brothers, says a common proverb, acknowledging their kinship while distinguishing their domains. Hypnos leads me deeper into his cave, where countless small alcoves contain sleepers of all kinds. Not physical bodies, but something like soul forms, dream bodies representing each mortal currently under his influence. He approaches one, adjusts something invisible around the dreamer's form, and the figure's expression softens noticeably. Different qualities of sleep for different needs, he explains. For the exhausted laborer, deep dreamless rest. For the troubled mind, gentle dreams that process waking distress. For the seeker of wisdom, pathways toward divine encounter. His hands move with the precision of a physician, the creativity of an artist, and the compassion of a healer as he tends to each sleeper's unique requirements. I notice some dream forms appear brighter than others, some more substantial, some barely visible. Those who acknowledge me receive deeper benefits, Hypnos explains, following my gaze. Consciousness of my divinity opens channels for more profound rest and more significant dreams. This explains the elaborate sleep rituals practiced by mystics and initiates the preparations, offerings, and mindful transitions designed to enter Hypnos's realm with awareness rather than stumbling into it through simple exhaustion. Such practices transform ordinary sleep into sacred communion with divine forces. May I see how you create dreams? I ask, emboldened by his openness. In response, Hypnos gestures toward a nearby pool of water darker than ink, yet somehow reflective. As I gaze into its depths, I see him dip his fingers into the liquid darkness and draw out something that resembles spun moonlight. A gleaming filament that he weaves into intricate patterns with movements too subtle and complex for mortal comprehension. Dreams are collaborations, he explains. I provide the material and initial patterns, but the dreamer's own mind, soul, and experiences shape the final form. And sometimes, of course, my relatives intervene. Apollo sending prophecy, Athena contributing wisdom, Aphrodite weaving desire. This revelation illuminates the complex theology of Greek dream experience. Not a single divine source, but a collaborative process involving both human consciousness and various divine influences, all working through the medium provided by Hypnos himself. Before I can inquire further, Hypnos approaches me directly. From a small pouch at his waist, he removes what appears to be sand composed of crushed crystal, finer than anything found in the waking world. "These are not ordinary dreams you seek," he says with gentle certainty. "You wish to understand the craft itself, to remember this encounter upon waking." He sprinkles the crystalline sand over my dream form, and immediately I feel a strange clarity, as if I am simultaneously deepening into sleep while becoming more lucidly aware. "This will anchor memory between realms," he explains. "What you learn here will not dissolve with morning light as ordinary dreams do." His wings now enfold me, not to constrain but to protect, creating an intimate space where his quiet voice becomes the only reality. "Sleep is not absence but presence," he whispers. "Not unconsciousness, but different consciousness. Not death, but renewal. Remember this when others speak carelessly of my domain." As his wings gradually withdraw, I feel myself beginning to transition again, not toward wakefulness, but toward ordinary dreaming, the special lucidity of direct divine encounter, giving way to the more familiar landscapes of regular sleep. Hypnos himself begins to fade, his form becoming increasingly indistinct, merging with the shadows of his cave. "Honor me with mindfulness," his voice echoes as he disappears entirely. "Enter my realm with awareness, and sleep becomes not merely rest but communion." I drift now through more familiar dream territories, ordinary visions replacing the profound clarity of divine encounter. Yet something has fundamentally shifted in my understanding. Sleep is not merely a biological necessity, but a sacred state, a divine art form crafted nightly by a god whose gentle power rivals any Olympian's more dramatic displays. The dream shifts and transforms, colors bleeding into new shapes, landscapes dissolving and reforming. Such fluidity signals the domain of another deity, not Hypnos himself, who governs sleep's threshold, but his artistic son who crafts the content of dreams. I feel a presence approaching, less primal than Hypnos, but perhaps more intimately connected to human experience. Morpheus, master of forms, the shapeshifter who populates our dreams with faces both familiar and strange. Unlike his father's shadowy cave, Morpheus's realm appears as a vast workshop filled with swirling mists that continuously coalesce into human figures before dissolving again. Thousands of faces emerge from the vapors, men, women, children of all ages and types. Some I recognize, others completely unknown. Each form is perfect in its detail, indistinguishable from waking reality, yet ephemeral as morning dew. "Every face you have ever seen is preserved here," speaks a voice that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Every person you have encountered, even those glimpsed for mere moments, can be recreated perfectly within your dreams." Morpheus himself finally takes shape before me, his appearance shifting subtly even as I observe him. One moment he wears the face of my father, the next a childhood friend, then a stranger with features so ordinary they could belong to anyone. Unlike gods who maintain consistent forms, Morpheus embodies his function: constant transformation, endless recreation of human appearance. "You are the dream crafter," I acknowledge, understanding now the distinction between father and son. Where Hypnos creates the condition of sleep itself, Morpheus designs its specific content, at least where human figures are concerned. One of three, he corrects, his form momentarily stabilizing into that of a handsome youth with quicksilver eyes. My brothers and I divide the work of dream creation. Phobator crafts the animals that populate your nighttime visions. Phantasos creates the landscapes, objects, and settings. I specialize in human forms alone, the people who speak, act, and interact within your dreams. This division of labor illuminates the complex theology behind Greek dream experience. Dreams are not random products of the sleeping mind, but divine creations, carefully crafted by specialized deities working in concert. The level of detail, down to the precise arrangement of a dream figure's features or the exact timbre of their voice, reflects deliberate artistic choices rather than haphazard imagination. Would you see how I work? Morpheus asks, gesturing toward the swirling mists that surround us. At my nod, he extends his hands and begins to shape the vapors as a sculptor might clay. Though his movements suggest a process more fluid and magical than physical craftsmanship, between his palms a face begins to form, at first vague and undefined, then increasingly detailed, until I recognize with astonishment my own mother's countenance, perfect in every feature. I can recreate anyone you have ever known, Morpheus explains, allowing the image to dissolve back into formlessness. But more importantly, I can show you those you have yet to meet. With another fluid gesture, he shapes a face I've never seen, a woman with eyes that seem to hold wisdom beyond her apparent years. Something about her features suggests she will be important to me, though I cannot yet imagine how or why. This, I realize, is why prophetic dreams often include encounters with strangers who later prove significant in waking life. Morpheus can craft not just memories but possibilities. How do you choose which forms to present in dreams? I ask, fascinated by this glimpse into divine creative process. Sometimes I receive direction from other gods, he replies, his form shifting again, features flowing like quicksilver. Apollo requests specific visages for his prophecies. Aphrodite commissions particular faces to kindle desire. Athena orders precisely rendered figures to illustrate her strategies. He pauses, reshaping himself to mirror my own appearance so perfectly, it's like gazing into still water. But often, I collaborate with the dreamer's own soul. Your deepest concerns, fears, wishes, and memories provide patterns I merely refine and animate. This explanation bridges theological understanding with personal psychology in a way uniquely Greek. Seeing human experience as neither entirely determined by gods nor entirely self-generated, but as conversation between mortal and divine influences. Dreams emerge as collaborative creations, divine artistry responding to human need. To demonstrate, Morpheus invites me to think of someone significant in my life. I focus on my brother, absent for months on a trading voyage to Egypt. Immediately, Morpheus transforms, becoming my brother so completely, down to the small scar above his eyebrow and his characteristic gesture of stroking his beard when thoughtful. That emotion tightens my throat. In ordinary dreams, Morpheus explains, still wearing my brother's form and perfectly mimicking his voice, I might bring this image to express your concern for his safety, your longing for his return, or to help you process something unresolved between you. Then, with disconcerting suddenness, Morpheus shifts into a figure I've never seen. An Egyptian merchant with distinctive clothing and accented Greek. Or I might show you this man, whom your brother now negotiates with along the Nile, to provide insight into matters beyond your waking knowledge. This revelation explains why Greeks take certain dreams so seriously, particularly those featuring unknown persons or unexplained situations. Such dreams might contain genuine information unavailable to waking consciousness. Not merely symbolic expressions of internal states, but actual glimpses of distant realities, delivered through Morpheus's divine craftsmanship. Morpheus guides, Me deeper into his workshop, where the mists part to reveal countless human forms in various stages of creation. Some merely sketched outlines, others detailed but static. Still others fully animated and engaged in dreamlike activities. Each night, I create thousands of forms for dreamers across the world, he explains. Some receive simple figures drawn from memory. Others, those who have earned divine favor or require special guidance, receive more elaborate creations. I notice some dream figures appear more luminous than others, seeming to radiate an inner light. Those are direct divine manifestations, Morpheus explains, following my gaze. When Zeus or Apollo wishes to appear in mortal dreams, I craft a form appropriate for human comprehension, then the god infuses it with their actual presence. Such dreams are rare, true divine visitations rather than symbolic representations. This distinction proves crucial for understanding Greek dream experience. The difference between dreams that merely reference divinity through imagery and those that constitute actual divine communion. The latter, though uncommon, represent the highest form of dream encounter, moments when the boundary between mortal and divine consciousness becomes permeable. How should we distinguish between ordinary dreams and significant ones? I ask, watching as he effortlessly shapes and reshapes human forms from the surrounding mists. Clarity is one sign, he replies. Dreams carrying divine messages maintain their coherence upon waking, while ordinary dreams fragment and fade. Emotional impact provides another indication. Truly significant dreams leave a lingering impression that persists into daylight hours. As he speaks, Morpheus demonstrates his remarkable skill, rapidly cycling through dozens of human forms. Young and old, male and female, familiar and foreign. Each manifestation appears completely authentic, indistinguishable from an actual person. This divine mimicry explains why dreamers so rarely question the identity of figures who appear in their sleep. Morpheus's craftsmanship is too perfect to arouse suspicion within the dream itself. Before our encounter concludes, Morpheus offers a final demonstration of his art. Close your eyes, he instructs, an ironic request within a dream. Nevertheless, I comply, and when I open them again, I find myself surrounded by every significant person from my life. Family members, friends, teachers, even brief acquaintances who somehow left lasting impressions. All stand in a circle around me, their faces perfectly rendered, expressions exactly as I remember them. This is my gift, Morpheus says, his voice coming from everywhere yet nowhere specific. To reunite you with those distant or lost, to introduce you to those yet unmet, to populate your dreams with faces that bring meaning, whether through joy or sorrow, comfort or challenge. The figures begin to fade one by one, dissolving back into the mists that permeate Morpheus's domain. As the last familiar face disappears, Morpheus himself materializes before me once more, now wearing a countenance both compassionate and slightly amused. Remember, he says as his own form begins to lose definition, when you see faces in dreams, you glimpse my artistry. I am the craftsman of your nocturnal encounters, shaping forms that reflect both divine intention and your own deeper awareness. Honor this understanding when you wake. As Morpheus dissolves into formlessness, I sense the dream shifting again, moving toward other territories of sleep. Yet his revelation remains. The people who populate our dreams are not random creations of our own minds, but carefully crafted divine representations, shaped by a God whose 1,000 faces reflect both heaven's purposes and our own unexpressed truths. The transition between dreaming and waking is never a simple threshold. Rather, it resembles a series of veils, each one thinner than the last, separating different levels of consciousness. As I drift through this liminal territory, neither fully immersed in dream nor fully returned to wakefulness, I sense a presence distinctly different from both the shadow-gentle Hypnos and the form-shifting Morpheus. This presence feels alert, quick, slightly mischievous, an intelligence that thrives in boundary spaces. A flicker of movement catches my attention, too rapid to follow properly, like sunlight reflecting off a moving stream. Then, a figure materializes, leaning casually against a doorway that wasn't there moments before. He appears as a handsome youth with an athletic build, wearing a simple traveler's chiton and broad-brimmed hat. Twin wings flutter at his ankles, and he carries a herald's staff entwined with serpents. His smile communicates both friendliness and sly amusement, as if he's arrived just in time to share a clever secret. Hermes, I acknowledge, recognizing the messenger god, patron of travelers, merchants, thieves, and all who navigate boundaries. You expected, perhaps, Aphrodite? He replies with a wink. Sorry to disappoint, but threshold crossings are my specialty. His voice has a musical quality, words flowing with practiced ease, as befits the divine patron of orators and poets. While Greeks regularly honor Hypnos and occasionally recognize Morpheus, we often overlook Hermes' crucial role in dream experience. Yet his domain extends naturally to this territory. He is Psychopompus, the soul's guide, escorting not just the dead to the underworld, but consciousness itself between the realms of waking and dreaming. Hermes gestures toward the doorway beside him. Most mortals pass through these thresholds without awareness, stumbling between states like drunks returning home in darkness. But you're different. You've cultivated attention to the in-between spaces. The doorway he indicates appears ordinary at first glance, but closer inspection reveals it stands entirely independent, connected to no wall or building, a portal, existing for its own sake rather than as passage between defined spaces. This paradox perfectly embodies Hermes' nature as god of transitions rather than destinations. This is your domain within the dream world? I ask, studying the curious doorway. Hermes laughs, the sound reminiscent of small bells. My domain is between, not within. Where Hypnos claims sleep itself and Morpheus shapes its contents, I govern the transitions. The moment when waking thought dissolves into dream, when one dream shifts to another, when sleep lightens toward morning consciousness. He taps his caduceus against the threshold, sending tiny sparks cascading around its frame. These boundary spaces are where the most interesting things happen. Inspiration strikes not in full wakefulness or deep sleep, but in that delicious middle territory where both mingle. Haven't you noticed how solutions often appear just as you're falling asleep or waking up? Indeed, this phenomenon is well known among Greeks. Poets speak of receiving verses while hovering between sleep and wakefulness. Philosophers report solving complex problems in this twilight state. Even craftsmen and farmers sometimes discover new techniques or approaches during these transitional moments. What they're experiencing, I now understand, is Hermes' particular influence, his domain of clever connections and boundary-crossing insights. Walk with me, Hermes invites, stepping through the doorway. I follow, finding myself in a curious landscape populated not with solid forms, but with half-visible scenes that fade in and out of focus, fragments of dreams caught in various stages of formation or dissolution. Most gods prefer clear domains with defined rules, Hermes explains as we walk. Zeus claims the bright sky, Poseidon the definite sea, Hades the established underworld. But I thrive in ambiguity, the spaces between established territories. This preference perfectly suits his role in dream experience. While other deities might visit fully formed dreams or send specific messages through completed visions, Hermes operates in the fluid, quick-changing transitions where meaning remains malleable and possibilities multiply. Dreams that involve journeys are often mine, he continues, pointing to a passing fragment where a dreamer traverses an impossible landscape that shifts between mountain, forest, and city with each step. As are dreams of finding hidden paths, discovering secret knowledge, or receiving unexpected messages. I notice his winged sandals occasionally lift him slightly above the ground as he walks. Never flying outright, but never quite bound by earth either. This too symbolizes his nature, bound neither to heaven nor earth exclusively, but moving freely between realms. Many mortals pray for dream guidance, I observe, but forget to include you among the deities they petition. Hermes' smile turns sly. Yet, I'm often the one who delivers the message, regardless of its source. Apollo may craft the prophecy, but I help it find its way through the labyrinth of sleep to reach the dreamer's understanding. Athena may devise the strategy, but I ensure it crosses the boundary between her divine wisdom and mortal comprehension. As he speaks, I notice how the landscape around us continually transforms, doorways appearing and vanishing, paths forking unexpectedly, boundaries between scenes bleeding into one another. This constant flux represents not chaos but possibility, the fluid potential of liminal spaces where meanings and connections haven't yet solidified into fixed forms. Some dreamers recognize my presence even without knowing it, Hermes notes. They experience what newer philosophers call lucid dreaming, awareness that one dreams while continuing to dream. This conscious navigation of dream space falls within my domain as guide between states of consciousness. Indeed, certain mystery traditions teach techniques for maintaining awareness during dream transitions, allowing initiates to deliberately explore different levels of dream experience, or even communicate with specific deities. These practices acknowledge, implicitly if not explicitly, Hermes' role as psychopomp of consciousness itself. But you do more than simply guide, don't you? I ask, noting how the god's eyes sparkle with barely contained mischief. You're also known for trickery and clever deception. Hermes laughs appreciatively. Observant. Yes, not all dreams come wrapped in straightforward packaging. Many arrive as riddles, wordplay, or symbolic puzzles requiring interpretation. These are my special contributions to the dreaming landscape. This explains why significant dreams often communicate through indirect means, puns, paradoxes, surprising juxtapositions, or symbolic representations that require active engagement to decipher. Such complexity isn't merely confusion, but Hermes' divine handprint, his way of ensuring that important dream messages engage the dreamer's own intelligence rather than simply delivering passive content. As we continue walking, Hermes occasionally touches his caduceus to various dream fragments, causing them to shift in subtle ways. A symbol transforming into its opposite, a statement inverting its meaning, a seemingly direct path suddenly revealing a hidden turn. These interventions demonstrate his ongoing influence in dream content, introducing productive ambiguity that prevents dreams from becoming too literal or simplistic. Before long, we arrive at another freestanding doorway, this one shimmering with gentle light that suggests approaching dawn. Hermes pauses beside it, leaning on his caduceus with casual grace. Morning approaches in your waking world, he observes. Soon you'll need to cross back through the thresholds of consciousness. But before you go, a small gift. From a pouch, at his belt, he produces what appears to be a tiny silver key. Place this beneath your pillow in the waking world. It will help you remember the transitions between dream states more clearly and navigate them with greater intention. I accept the gift, understanding it represents not a physical object, but a symbolic token of divine favor. Hermes granting enhanced access to his domain of thresholds and transitions. Such dream gifts from gods often manifest in waking life, not as literal objects, but as new capabilities or perspectives previously unavailable. One last thing, Hermes adds, his expression turning momentarily serious. If you wish to remember dreams more clearly upon waking, call my name 3 times as you feel yourself rising toward consciousness. As guide between realms, I can help preserve dream memory through the disruptive transition to wakefulness. This practical advice explains why some mystery traditions teach specific invocations to be memorized and recited during the threshold between sleep and waking. These practices recognize Hermes' authority over such transitions, and his ability to maintain connections between states that would otherwise remain separate. As dawn light grows stronger beyond the doorway, Hermes gestures toward it with his caduceus. Time to return. Remember what you've learned. Dreams are not merely nightly entertainments, but journeys between states of consciousness. With myself as your guide across the thresholds. He steps aside, allowing me passage through the doorway. As I move toward waking consciousness, I feel his influence facilitating a smoother transition than usual. Memories of dream encounters remaining unusually vivid rather than dissolving into morning forgetting. This too is Hermes' gift. Continuity of awareness across boundaries that normally fragment experience. His voice follows me through the transition, growing fainter as waking reality grows stronger. Look for me in the in-between spaces, not just in sleep, but in all moments of transition and boundary crossing. Those who recognize my presence receive inspiration that others miss. The message fades as morning consciousness solidifies around me, yet doesn't disappear entirely. Unlike experiences of other dream deities, encounters with Hermes tend to leave their mark not as discrete memories, but as enhanced capacity for noticing connections between seemingly separate domains, waking and sleeping, conscious and unconscious, mundane and divine. The landscape of sleep transforms again, but not with the gentle fluidity of previous transitions. This change comes with a rush of sensations, the air suddenly heavy with the scent of pine resin, crushed grapes, and something wilder, more primal. The ground beneath me seems to pulse like a living heartbeat. Distant music reaches my ears, not Apollo's measured lyre, but frenzied drumming, and the piercing notes of double pipes played with abandoned fervor. I know immediately which god approaches, and a mixture of anticipation and apprehension quickens. My pulse. Dionysus comes to dreamers differently than other gods. Where Apollo announces himself with golden light and Athena with cool clarity, the wine god's presence begins as disorientation, a delicious vertigo, a pleasurable unraveling of the ordered mind. The very structure of the dream loosens, rational thought giving way to sensation and emotion. Colors intensify beyond natural hues. Sounds acquire textural qualities, and the boundary between dreamer and dream begins to dissolve. I find myself suddenly in a forest clearing I've never seen before, though it feels strangely familiar, as if remembered from a life I haven't yet lived. Moonlight filters through pine branches, creating patterns that seem to move with deliberate significance. A circle of maenads, the god's ecstatic female followers, dance around a central figure, still obscured by shadow and swirling motion. Their faces express something beyond ordinary pleasure, beyond simple joy, a rapturous abandonment that simultaneously attracts and terrifies. "They seek what you seek," comes a voice from everywhere and nowhere. The dissolution of boundaries that trap the spirit in too rigid forms. From the whirling center of the circle emerges Dionysus himself. Not the sanitized image from temple friezes, but the true god in his primal aspect. He appears simultaneously youthful and ancient, beautiful and terrible, masculine and feminine, in perfect integration. Vine leaves crown his flowing hair, and his eyes reflect shifting worlds. Unlike other gods who maintain a certain distance even in dreams, Dionysus radiates an almost painful immediacy, a presence so intense it threatens to overwhelm individual identity. Most dreamers who invite me receive only gentled versions of my gifts, he says, his voice harmonizing with the distant drums. Little sips of divine madness, diluted for safer consumption. Is that what you seek tonight? A tamed ecstasy that leaves your waking self undisturbed? His question cuts to the heart of Greek ambivalence toward Dionysian experience. We honor the god with festivals and theater, with sanctioned revelry and ritual wine, yet we also fear the complete surrender he ultimately represents. Institutionalized. Religion offers controlled encounters with divine ecstasy. True Dionysian possession demands total abandonment of the structured self. I seek understanding, I reply carefully, watching as the maenads circle closer, their eyes reflecting moonlight with unnerving intensity. Dionysus laughs, a sound with the richness of wine and the wildness of forest streams. Understanding is Apollo's domain, compartmentalized and hierarchical. I offer direct experience, unmediated by thought or language. To know me is to surrender knowing itself. He approaches with fluid grace, extending a cup I hadn't noticed before, a kylix of dark clay filled with liquid that appears black in the moonlight. Unlike the careful ritual offerings made to other gods, Dionysus engages in direct exchange, offering his essence for consumption. Dreams are my natural territory, he continues. In sleep, the rational mind already loosens its grip. The structures of thought that separate and categorize experience begin to dissolve. Dreams naturally mimic the state my mysteries induce, through wine, dance, and ritual. Both create access to knowledge unavailable to the ordered mind. This connection between dreams and Dionysian experience explains why his followers often cultivate specific dream states. The Orphics and other mystery cults incorporate dream incubation into their practices, recognizing sleep as a natural entryway into the dissolution of boundaries that Dionysian worship requires. Some initiatory rites deliberately blur the distinction between waking vision and dream experience, creating states where participants cannot clearly distinguish between physical and visionary reality. Dionysus still holds the cup before me, his expression neither demanding nor judgmental, but simply present, embodying choice without pressure. To drink is to know me more directly, he says. Some find terror in that knowledge, others liberation. Most find both. I hesitate, understanding the significance of this dream offering. To accept Dionysian communion, even in dreams, is to invite transformation more profound than most divine encounters. Apollo's prophecies guide action. Athena's wisdom shapes thought. But Dionysus transforms being itself, dissolving the foundations of identity that most carefully maintain throughout life. What will I become? I ask. A question rarely relevant with other deities but essential with the god of metamorphosis. More truly yourself, he answers, and less bound by what you think that self must be. This paradox lies at the heart of Dionysian mystery. His ecstasy strips away social masks and rational constraints, not to destroy identity, but to reveal its deeper, more fluid potential. Unlike other gods who reinforce social structures, Zeus the lawgiver, Hera the protector of marriage, Dionysus temporarily suspends them, creating space for authentic expression normally suppressed by social convention. I take the cup and drink. The liquid burns and soothes simultaneously, tasting of wine but also of something older. Fermentation itself, the primal transformation of sweetness into intoxication, of stasis into movement. As it courses through my dream body, boundaries begin to blur. The distinction between myself and the forest, myself and the dancers, myself and the god becomes increasingly meaningless. The dream transforms into what the initiated would recognize as true Dionysian experience. I am simultaneously dancing and being danced, observing and participating. The maenads are now both separate from me and aspects of myself. Their ecstatic movements express something my waking self keeps carefully contained, a wildness that civilization channels but never fully tames. A connection to life's regenerative chaos that social structures necessarily limit. This is the dream beneath your dreams, Dionysus whispers, though whether he speaks externally or from within my own transformed awareness becomes impossible to determine. The ecstatic current that flows beneath the structured surface of mind. Unlike visitations from gods who maintain clear divine mortal distinctions, Dionysian dream presence involves temporary merging. Where Apollo speaks to the dreamer, Dionysus speaks through them, dissolving the boundary between divine communication and self-discovery. This explains why dreams following Dionysian ritual often feel simultaneously foreign and deeply familiar. They access aspects of self normally segregated from waking consciousness. The forest around us pulses with life, each plant and creature, radiating its own consciousness, its own participation in the unified field of existence that ordinary perception fragments into separate categories. This perspectival shift represents another aspect of Dionysian gift, the ecological awareness that precedes and transcends human-centered ordering of experience. Your waking world creates false separations. The god's voice continues from everywhere and nowhere. Between human and animal, civilization and nature, self and other, madness and sanity, even life and death. Dreams naturally soften these boundaries. My presence dissolves them further. As he speaks, I experience what philosophers might call momentary participation in the unified field of being. Direct perception of interconnection beneath the apparent separation of individuated forms. This perspective explains why Dionysian worship often involves communion with nature, why his followers seek forests and mountains rather than temples, why his rites frequently incorporate animal symbolism that blurs the human-beast distinction. Yet, even in this ecstatic dissolution, something of everyday awareness remains, a witnessing presence that prevents complete loss of self. This too reflects Dionysian wisdom. True ecstasy involves surrender, but not annihilation. Transformation rather, than simple escape. The god's gift is not oblivion, but expanded perception that includes rather than rejects ordinary consciousness. As the dream vision reaches its peak intensity, Dionysus speaks one final time. Remember this when you wake. The boundaries you perceive are conventions, not absolutes. Dreams reveal their permeability. I celebrate their dissolution. Those who fear me fear this truth more than they fear me. With these words, the dream begins to shift again. The intense sensations gradually fade, the merged consciousness slowly resolving back into something resembling ordinary identity. Yet something fundamental has changed. Not a specific piece of knowledge gained, but a perspectival shift that will subtly influence how I perceive reality, even in waking life. Unlike messages from Apollo that might prompt specific actions or insights from Athena that clarify strategic decisions, Dionysian dream gifts work through transformation of consciousness itself. The experience alters not just what we know, but how we know, releasing creative potential previously constrained by habitual patterns of perception and thought. As I drift toward morning consciousness, traces of divine ecstasy gradually diminishing but not entirely disappearing, I understand why Dionysus occupies such a complex position in Greek religious life, simultaneously celebrated and constrained, honored with festivals yet feared for his dissolving power. His dream visitations offer necessary release from the rigid structures of civilized consciousness. Yet too complete an embrace of his gifts would make ordinary social functioning impossible. In the tapestry of divine dream influences, Dionysus represents the essential thread of creative chaos without which the pattern would become sterile and lifeless. His ecstatic visions may disturb and disorient, yet they also renew and regenerate, maintaining vital connection to aspects of existence that more orderly deities necessarily exclude from their domains. The dream landscape transforms once more, but unlike the wild dissolution of Dionysian vision or the golden clarity of Apollo's prophecy, this change follows a gentler rhythm, a slow, inevitable transition like the turning of seasons. The ecstatic forest fades, and I find myself walking along the edge of a meadow where flowers bloom in impossible profusion. Half the field shimmers with spring growth, narcissus, hyacinth, and crocus in vibrant display. The other half shows withered stalks and fallen petals, beautiful in their decay, with ripe pomegranates hanging heavy among dying leaves. This divided landscape signals the approach of a goddess unlike any other in the Greek pantheon, one who belongs equally to upper world and underworld, to life and death, to growth and decay. I wait at the boundary between blooming and withering, understanding instinctively that this liminal space is where she will appear. She walks toward me from the direction of neither living field nor dying one, but from some third path I hadn't noticed before. Persephone, daughter of Demeter, unwilling bride and eventual queen of Hades, moves with the peculiar dual grace of her divided nature. She wears a crown of woven asphodels, flowers of both upper-world meadows and underworld fields, and her chiton shifts between vibrant green and deepest black as she approaches, never settling on either color, but embodying both simultaneously. "You've come at the turning time," she says, her voice carrying both the lightness of spring breezes and the depth of subterranean rivers, when the veil between realms grows thin and dreams flow more easily between worlds. Greeks recognize certain days when communication with the dead becomes more possible. Festivals like the Anthesteria, when ancestral spirits briefly return to the upper world. These calendar moments mirror Persephone's own transitions between realms, creating temporal doorways when dream boundaries become more permeable. The most potent dreams often come during these threshold seasons. The days surrounding spring and autumn equinoxes, the transitions that mark Persephone's journey between worlds. "Your people track my movements through their dreams," she continues, gesturing toward the divided landscape around us. "Even those who never consciously invoke me feel my transitions in their sleeping visions." This observation illuminates patterns familiar to any attentive Greek, how dreams seem to change with the seasons, becoming more vivid during transition periods. Around the autumn equinox, when Persephone descends to her underworld kingdom, dreams often turn inward, filled with encounters with the deceased, or journeys into mysterious depths. During the spring equinox, marking her return to the upper world, dreams frequently feature themes of renewal, ascension, or discovery. Persephone stoops to gather flowers from the living field and withered stalks from the dying one, weaving them together into a garland as she speaks. Most gods remain constant in their domains. Zeus always rules the sky, Poseidon the sea, but I change with the turning year, bringing aspects of each realm into the other. Her seasonal migration between worlds makes Persephone uniquely qualified to guide certain types of dreams, particularly those involving transformation, transition, or communication between normally separated realms. While other chthonic deities like Hades remain permanently below, Persephone's regular return to the upper world allows her to serve as intermediary, carrying messages between living and dead through the medium of dreams. "The dead speak through me," she explains, placing the mixed garland of living and dead plants around her neck. "Not always in words, but in images and emotions that filter into dreams when my influence is strongest." This explains why Greeks often experience dreams of deceased loved ones around the time of Persephone's descent in autumn. These aren't necessarily direct communications from the dead, but expressions of Persephone's unique function as boundary crosser, temporarily thinning the veil between worlds as she herself transitions between them. "Come," she says, extending her hand. "Walk with me between the fields." I join her on a narrow path I hadn't noticed before, a trail that runs precisely between the blooming meadow and the withering one, belonging fully to neither realm but connecting both. As we walk, I notice how my own emotional state fluctuates, shifting between melancholy and joy, reflection and anticipation, in perfect rhythm with Persephone's steps. "Your dreams follow my cycles," she explains, seeming to read my internal experience. "In the waning months, when I descend to join my husband below, your sleeping visions turn inward, contemplative, sometimes sorrowful, often concerned with endings and what lies beyond them. When I return to my mother in spring, your dreams expand outward, creative, generative, filled with new beginnings. This seasonal pattern of dream experiences reflects something deeper than mere psychological response to changing daylight or temperature. For Greeks, it represents actual attunement to divine movements, the dream world naturally resonating with Persephone's transitions because she embodies the principle of cyclical change that governs all life. Some fear my autumn influence on dreams, Persephone observes. They dread the visions of descent, the encounters with shadow aspects of themselves or others. But these dreams bring necessary wisdom, just as winter fallow periods bring renewed fertility to fields. Unlike encounters with Hades himself, which tend to provoke terror even in dreams, Persephone's underworld aspects carry a gentler quality, melancholy rather than frightening, reflective rather than devastating. She offers a more accessible face of chthonic wisdom, making underworld knowledge available without overwhelming the dreamer with death's full mystery. My husband rules the dead, she continues, but I understand both death and life, having experienced each fully. This gives me unique perspective on the necessary relationship between them. As she speaks, I notice something remarkable about the path we walk. Though it appears to be a simple trail between fields, our actual movement follows a spiral pattern, gradually descending though no slope is visible. The quality of light subtly shifts, becoming neither the bright illumination of upper world nor the darkness of underworld, but a gentle twilight that reveals details invisible in either extreme. This middling light is my gift, Persephone says, again responding to my unspoken observation. Neither the harsh clarity that blinds, nor the darkness that obscures, but illumination that reveals what exists between categories, between states, between worlds. Her words explain why dreams during transitional seasons often bring insights unavailable in either summer's full expansion or winter's complete contraction. Persephone's liminality creates space for perceptions that transcend binary thinking, revealing connections and continuities where waking consciousness perceives only separation. We reach a point where the spiral path approaches a natural gateway, formed by two ancient cypress trees. Beyond lies darkness deeper than night, yet somehow inviting, rather than threatening. Persephone pauses at this threshold, turning to face me directly. I will not take you further today, she says. But know that when you dream of descending stairs, entering caves, or passing through gateways in the autumn months, you walk under my protection. And when you dream of emerging from depths, ascending heights, or discovering new growth in spring, you share in my rebirth. She removes a single pomegranate seed from the folds of her flowing garment and offers it on her open palm. Unlike the fateful seeds that bound her to the underworld in the familiar myth, this one seems to shine with its own inner light. This will not trap you as mine trapped me, she assures me, seeing my hesitation. It serves as connection, rather than constraint, a living link between your consciousness and my dual realms. I accept the seed, and as it touches my palm, I experience a momentary double vision, simultaneously perceiving the world from above and below, from the perspective of growth and decay, living and dead. This integrated perception doesn't last long, but its impact lingers, suggesting possibilities for understanding that transcend ordinary categories. Keep this awareness when you wake, Persephone instructs. Notice how your dreams shift with my movements through the year. When summer dreams grow dense and heavy as autumn approaches, recognize my beginning descent. When winter dreams lighten and quicken as spring nears, feel my preparation for ascent. This attunement to seasonal dream patterns reflects a deeper, Greek understanding of human consciousness as naturally embedded in cosmic cycles. Rather than seeing seasonal mood or dream changes as merely psychological phenomena, our tradition recognizes them as genuine participation in divine movements, the human microcosm resonating with macrocosmic rhythms embodied by gods like Persephone. Those who honor me, the goddess continues, Set aside specific periods for dream incubation that align with my transitions. The week of my descent and the week of my return are particularly potent for receiving dreams that bridge realms normally separated. She begins to move backward toward the Cypress gateway, maintaining eye contact as the distance between us grows. Remember that no dream state is permanent, just as no season lasts forever. The descent into darker dreams always precedes eventual ascent. The ascent into lighter dreams always contains the seed of future descent. This endless cycle is not meaningless repetition, but spiral evolution, each turn bringing new depth to both light and dark experiences. As Persephone reaches the threshold between trees, her form begins to shift, one moment appearing as the maiden who gathers flowers in Nisa's fields, the next as the mature queen who rules the dead beside Hades. These aspects don't alternate, but somehow coexist, revealing her complete nature as embodiment of transformation itself. Listen for me in the changing seasons of your dreams. Her voice comes now as if from a growing distance. I speak most clearly not through words, but through the very rhythm of descent and return, death and rebirth, that structures dream experiences throughout the turning year. She passes between the cypress trees and vanishes from sight, though her presence lingers like perfume in the air or the aftertaste of wine. The dreamscape itself begins to shift again, the divided meadow slowly fading, as my consciousness prepares to transition toward another divine encounter. What remains is deeper understanding of dreams not as isolated experiences, but as participation in seasonal rhythms governed by Persephone's eternal journey between worlds. A recognition that the changing qualities of our dream life throughout the year reflect not merely personal psychology, but attunement to divine movements that structure existence itself. Thunder rumbles in the distance, though no clouds are visible in the dream sky. The sound comes not from weather, but from divine approach, a reverberation that shakes not just the air, but the very fabric of the dream itself. I feel a pressure, building, as if the atmosphere grows too dense to contain some imminent presence. This sensation is familiar to any Greek who has experienced sacred dreams. The king of gods approaches. Zeus does not slip quietly into mortal dreams as some deities do. His arrival announces itself with unmistakable power, the dreamscape trembling in acknowledgement of supreme authority. Unlike encounters with specialized dream gods like Morpheus or boundary deities like Hermes, a visit from Zeus himself represents direct communication from the highest divine power, an event rare enough to merit recording in temple archives should I remember it upon waking. The landscape around me transforms to accommodate his coming. Simple surroundings, a meadow, a grove, a hillside, suddenly manifest architectural elements without losing their natural character. Columns of living trees rise in perfect alignment. A throne of stone emerges from bedrock without being quarried. A ceiling of interwoven branches forms a natural temple. The dreamscape reorganizes itself into a space that bridges wilderness and civilization, reflecting Zeus's dual nature as both primal force and divine lawgiver. He appears not in a flash of lightning as depicted in poetry, but through a gradual intensification of presence. First comes a quality of attention so focused it seems to compress the very air. Then an outline of immense scale that somehow fits perfectly within human perception. Finally, details that simultaneously fulfill and transcend expectations. The silver-streaked beard, the eyes that contain both storm and clear sky, the expression of absolute authority tempered with unexpected gentleness. Few summon me directly to their dreams, Zeus speaks, his voice containing multitudes, the low rumble of distant thunder, the clarity of mountaintop air, the warmth of hearth fire. Most prefer intermediaries, finding my direct presence overwhelming. Indeed, Greek dream traditions generally favor approaching Zeus through mediators, oracular priests who interpret signs, lesser deities who carry prayers upward, heroes who bridge divine and mortal realms. Direct dream visitation from Zeus himself typically comes unrequested when matters of sufficient importance warrant the king of gods bypassing ordinary protocols. Yet here I am, he continues, settling onto the stone throne that moments ago was merely earth and rock. Because dreams offer a space where we may speak directly, your mortal frame protected by sleep from the full impact of divine presence. This observation illuminates a crucial aspect of Greek theological understanding. Direct divine encounter can overwhelm or even destroy mortal consciousness in waking life, as illustrated in many myths where humans who behold gods in their true form suffer devastating consequences. Dreams provide a buffer, allowing communication across the divine-mortal barrier with reduced risk to the human recipient. Zeus gestures, and suddenly two cups appear, one sized for his immense proportion, one appropriately scaled for me. Both contain what appears to be nectar, the divine drink normally forbidden to mortals. In dreams, certain boundaries may be temporarily suspended, he explains, noting my hesitation. What would harm your physical form may safely be experienced by your dream self. I accept the offered cup, understanding that this represents communion of the most profound sort, sharing drink with the King of Gods himself. The nectar tastes of honey, sunlight, and something beyond description, carrying not just flavor, but vitality that seems to illuminate my dream body from within. When I choose to enter mortal dreams, Zeus explains, it is usually for one of three purposes: to deliver divine mandate, to test mortal character, or to establish a covenant with a chosen individual or community. Historical records and temple inscriptions throughout Greece document examples of each type. King Agamemnon received tactical instructions through a dream of Zeus before battle. The lawgiver Lycurgus reportedly established Sparta's constitution after Zeus revealed its principles in sequential dreams. Alexander claimed that Zeus visited his dreams before crucial campaigns, providing both strategy and divine sanction. Tonight, Zeus continues, I come neither to command, nor test, nor covenant, but simply to be witnessed, to remind mortals that the barrier between divine and human realms, while necessary, is not absolute. This revelation offers insight into a less discussed aspect of Greek religious experience, dreams not as vehicles for specific divine messages, but as opportunities for genuine encounter across the cosmic hierarchy. Such dreams serve not instrumental, but relational purposes, maintaining connection between mortal and divine spheres that might otherwise grow too separate. The air around Zeus shimmers with barely contained power. Occasionally, tiny lightning flashes dance between his fingers or across his beard, suggesting the immense energies held in check to make this communication possible. Though his appearance remains generally human in form, certain details shift beyond mortal parameters. His eyes sometimes containing entire weather systems, his hair momentarily becoming cloud or flame before returning to recognizable appearance. Most mortals seek dreams from gods who govern specific domains of concern, Zeus observes. They petition Asclepius for healing, Apollo for prophecy, Athena for strategy. But some questions transcend these specialized jurisdictions, requiring attention from one who oversees the entire cosmic order. This explains why significant life transitions, births, marriages, assumption of leadership roles, preparation for death, often feature dreams of Zeus in Greek experience. Such pivotal moments concern not particular life domains, but the entire structure of existence, falling naturally under the purview of the supreme deity who maintains cosmic balance. With a subtle gesture, Zeus transforms our surroundings. The dream space expands dramatically, the natural temple opening to reveal what appears to be the entire cosmos, stars and planets in their courses, the earth suspended in perfect position, the invisible lines of force and fate that connect all existence. This vision corresponds to what initiates of certain mystery cults report experiencing during their most profound rituals. Direct perception of cosmic structure normally hidden from mortal awareness. In waking life, you perceive fragments, Zeus explains as I gaze in wonder at the celestial display. In dreams, especially those I inhabit, you may glimpse the whole. This perspective doesn't negate your human understanding but contextualizes it within larger patterns. This cosmological revelation represents another function of Zeus dreams in Greek religious experience, providing occasional glimpses of comprehensive order that help mortals align individual lives with divine purpose. Such dreams often come at moments of doubt or conflict, when human perspective has become too limited to resolve seemingly contradictory obligations or values. Your philosophers seek to comprehend this order through reason alone, Zeus observes, his expression mixing amusement and approval. A noble endeavor, but incomplete. Some knowledge comes only through direct experience of what transcends rational categories. The cosmic vision fades gradually, our surroundings returning to the simpler dream temple of living trees and stone. Zeus studies me with eyes that seem to perceive not just my dream form, but my entire existence across time. Past, present, and possible futures, simultaneously available to his divine perception. When mortals dream of gods, he says, they often question whether the experience represents genuine divine contact or merely their own mind's creation. This distinction matters less than they imagine. Even dreams that arise from within contain elements of divine truth, for the human soul itself participates in cosmic order. This perspective reconciles seemingly contradictory approaches to dream interpretation in Greek tradition, those that treat dreams as direct divine communications, and those that view them as expressions of the dreamer's own deeper awareness. Zeus's observation suggests these aren't mutually exclusive understandings, since the mortal soul itself contains divine spark, capable of recognizing truths beyond ordinary consciousness. Thunder sounds again, closer now, signaling that the audience approaches its conclusion. Zeus rises from his throne, his form growing simultaneously more defined and more difficult to perceive directly. A paradox possible only in dreams or the highest mystical experiences. Remember this when you wake, he pronounces with the formal cadence used for binding declarations. The boundary between mortal and divine remains necessary but permeable. Dreams provide not escape from human limitations, but glimpses beyond them, windows through which divine perspective may occasionally illuminate mortal understanding. As he speaks these final words, his form begins to transform, expanding beyond human similitude into something both more elemental and more transcendent, simultaneously storm and sky, justice and power, order and freedom. This revelation of his less anthropomorphic nature would overwhelm a waking witness, but the dream state allows me to perceive it without destruction. Zeus does not simply vanish or fade like lesser dream visitors. Instead, he seems to incorporate the entire dreamscape into himself, absorbing rather than departing from the vision. The process creates a curious sense of both conclusion and continuation, the direct encounter ending while the divine presence diffuses throughout dream consciousness rather than truly leaving it. As this transformation completes, I understand something essential about Zeus dreams in Greek experience. They don't simply deliver specific messages, but recalibrate the dreamer's entire relationship to existence, restoring proper perspective on the cosmic hierarchy that structures both divine and mortal realms. The dream itself becomes not merely communication but communion, temporary participation in the comprehensive viewpoint available to the King of Gods. This communion lingers even as the specific dream vision dissolves, carrying into subsequent dreams and potentially into waking consciousness, a renewed sense of cosmic order and one's place within it. The most lasting and significant gift that Zeus bestows upon those whose dreams he chooses to enter. The dream shifts yet again, But this transformation differs from all previous changes. Rather than sudden appearance or gradual fading, the entire dreamscape begins to flow like water, solid forms dissolving into liquid movement, boundaries becoming fluid, perspectives shifting with tidal rhythm. Even my own dream presence becomes less defined, as if my consciousness merges partially with surrounding currents of sensation and thought. Salt fills my nostrils, not the gentle scent of distant shorelines, but the overwhelming brine of deep ocean, powerful and primal. The ground beneath me transforms, first becoming sand, then shallow sea floor, finally disappearing altogether as I find myself suspended in endless blue depths that somehow allow me to breathe and speak. This paradoxical experience, underwater yet undrowned, signals the domain of Poseidon, Earthshaker, Lord of Oceans, whose dream presence manifests not through vision alone, but through complete environmental transformation. Unlike Zeus, who maintains distinction between himself and the dreamer, or Apollo, whose light illuminates but remains separate, Poseidon creates dreams where boundaries between deity, dreamer, and surroundings become permeable, reflecting the ocean's fundamental nature. I feel myself simultaneously contained and released. Individual consciousness preserved yet connected to something vast beyond comprehension. The perfect embodiment of oceanic experience. My realm and dreams share the same nature, speaks a voice that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, resonating through water rather than air. Both flow rather than stand, connect rather than separate, depth rather than define. Poseidon materializes not as a singular figure, but as a presence that coalesces temporarily from the surrounding waters. His form remains fluid, features recognizable, yet constantly shifting like reflections on disturbed water. His beard seems composed of sea foam and flowing currents. His eyes contain tidal movements rather than fixed expression. His trident appears assembled from concentrated water pressure rather than solid metal. Other gods enter dreams as visitors, he continues, his voice sometimes distant as breaking waves, sometimes intimate as water flowing through my very being. I transform the dream itself into an extension of my domain. For how else could mortals comprehend the nature of ocean? This approach explains why Poseidon dreams differ so dramatically from other divine dream encounters in Greek experience. Where most gods adapt themselves to the dream's existing structure, Poseidon adapts the dream to his oceanic nature, creating immersive experiences that communicate through environment rather than merely through message or symbol. The surrounding waters shift constantly, sometimes calm and clear enough to see infinite distances, other times turbulent and opaque, mirroring the sea's changeable temperament. Your people know me primarily through my surfaces, Poseidon observes. The visible waves, the practical challenges of sailing, the boundaries between land and water. Few comprehend my depths. As he speaks, the dream waters around us stratify into distinct layers, each with different qualities of pressure, temperature, light, and movement. We begin to descend through these layers, moving from familiar surface conditions toward progressively more alien environments. This descent mirrors the structure of Poseidon-influenced dreams recorded in temple archives. They typically begin in recognizable settings before transitioning to increasingly unfamiliar psychological territories. The ocean's depths existed before human consciousness emerged, Poseidon explains as we sink deeper. Just as certain regions of your inner being precede your formation as individuals, I govern both, external waters and internal depths that share the same fluid, powerful, mysterious nature. This connection between oceanic and psychological depths pervades Greek understanding of Poseidon's influence. He represents not just physical seas, but the pre-rational currents of emotion, instinct, and collective memory that flow beneath ordinary awareness. His dream visitations often bring these submerged aspects into temporary consciousness, creating experiences both revealing and potentially overwhelming. At certain depth, light from the surface disappears entirely, replaced by unexpected illumination. emanating from the water itself, a subtle phosphorescence that reveals strange formations and movement patterns invisible from above. Surface awareness sees by light reflected from external sources, Poseidon observes. Depth consciousness perceives through direct contact with what surrounds it. This distinction highlights another characteristic of Poseidon dreams in Greek: experience. They tend to convey understanding through immersion rather than observation, through felt knowing rather than visual information. Where Apollo's dream prophecies present clear images or Athena's strategic visions offer distinct patterns, Poseidon's communications emerge through shifts in the dreamer's emotional state and bodily sensations. Strange creatures become visible. In the illuminated waters, forms that combine familiar marine life with mythological elements and occasionally disturbing distortions. Every being that lives within my realm represents something that lives within yours, Poseidon explains, indicating the passing entities with a gesture that sends currents flowing in complex patterns around his fluid form. Greek dream interpreters recognize these hybrid creatures as symbolic manifestations of psychological elements normally kept separate in waking consciousness. The hippocamp with horse's body and fish's tail represents the joining of controlled and uncontrolled aspects of personality. The many-armed octopus suggests hidden capabilities and adaptations. The vast but rarely seen whale embodies powerful awareness that surfaces only occasionally into consciousness. We continue descending until reaching what appears to be the ocean floor. A landscape both alien and strangely familiar, covered with formations that resemble ancient ruins, half buried in silt and coral growth. Your oldest memories, collective and individual, Poseidon identifies them. The foundations upon which your current awareness rests, though you rarely perceive them directly. These submerged ruins correspond to what mystery traditions call the ancestral sea. The accumulated experiences, traumas, triumphs, and adaptations that shape human consciousness across generations. Poseidon dreams often bring dreamers into contact with these foundational elements, creating opportunities to recognize influences normally operating below the threshold of awareness. As we move among these primal structures, I notice certain formations actively emanating currents that flow upward toward the distant surface. Thought patterns, emotional tendencies, instinctive reactions, Poseidon explains, all rising from depth to influence surface awareness, though their origins remain hidden. This revelation illuminates another function of Poseidon dreams in Greek experience, revealing connections between conscious attitudes and their unconscious sources. Such dreams often provide insight into persistent patterns that resist rational understanding, precisely because their origins lie in these oceanic depths beyond reason's reach. Suddenly, the waters around us begin to move with greater intensity, currents shifting from gentle flow to powerful surge. My domain contains not just depth but force, Poseidon reminds, as the dream ocean responds to some unseen stimulus. Creative and destructive power beyond mortal control. This aspect of Poseidon's nature explains why dreams of overwhelming waves, flooding, or being swept away by currents occupy a distinct category in Greek dream interpretation. Such dreams typically indicate contact with emotions or life circumstances too powerful for existing psychological structures to contain, situations requiring either strengthened boundaries or strategic surrender to transformative forces. Most mortals fear my destructive capacity, Poseidon observes, as the waters momentarily form patterns resembling storm waves and whirlpools before settling again into relative calm. Few recognize that destruction often precedes necessary renewal. Old structures must sometimes be broken before new ones can form. Indeed, historical records from Temple Dream archives show that significant life transitions, particularly those involving identity transformation, frequently feature Poseidon dreams of being overwhelmed and reconstituted. Initiatory rituals in coastal regions often incorporate symbolic drowning and rebirth precisely to invoke this regenerative aspect of oceanic experience. The surrounding waters shift again, now forming a spiraling current that moves simultaneously, downward and upward, creating a paradoxical flow that seems to connect deepest ocean floor with distant surface. My true gift, Poseidon explains, is not surface or depth alone, but movement between them, the currents that connect conscious and unconscious awareness. This connecting function distinguishes Poseidon dreams from other oceanic experiences in Greek religious practice, where certain mystery cults use water symbolism to represent complete dissolution of individual identity. Poseidon's domain maintains distinction while establishing connection, preserving individual consciousness while linking it to collective and primordial awareness. Those who honor me properly, Poseidon continues, understand that I govern not just the seas themselves, but the tides, the rhythmic movements between states that structure both external nature and internal experience. This tidal aspect explains why Poseidon dreams often feature cyclical patterns, waves that retreat only to return, depths that darken before brightening again, immersions followed by emergences. Such dreams reflect natural psychological rhythms between conscious focus and unconscious processing, between rational assessment and emotional experience, between individual perception and collective understanding. As our dream journey through oceanic realms approaches its conclusion, Poseidon's fluid form begins to merge more completely with surrounding waters, his distinct features becoming increasingly difficult to distinguish from the endless blue environment. Remember this fluidity when you wake. His voice comes now from everywhere at once. Your waking mind creates necessary boundaries, but dreams reveal the flowing reality beneath those useful but temporary distinctions. I feel myself beginning to rise toward the surface again, carried by gentle currents that seem reluctant to release me completely from the profound immersion of Poseidon's realm. Unlike the distinct conclusions of other divine dream encounters, this one fades gradually, oceanic awareness slowly receding rather than abruptly disappearing. Listen for me in the rhythm of your breath. Poseidon's voice follows, growing fainter as dream consciousness shifts toward another state. In the pulse of your blood, in the tides of your emotions, all flowing waters that connect you to my eternal realm, even as new dream landscapes begin forming around me. Something of the oceanic experience remains, a lingering sense of connection to depths beyond ordinary awareness, an embodied understanding that solid forms emerge temporarily from fluid foundations. This persistent influence reflects Poseidon's enduring impact on Greek consciousness, flowing beneath the more visible structures created by Olympian deities, who govern rational, differentiated aspects of existence. The ocean dream recedes, but unlike previous transitions, this one comes with gentle warmth spreading through my dream body, beginning at the center of my chest and radiating outward. The sensation isn't merely pleasant, but somehow both familiar and novel simultaneously, like encountering a forgotten melody that awakens memories of experiences never actually lived. Before any visual perception forms, I recognize her presence through this distinctive emotional signature. Aphrodite enters dreams differently than any other deity. Where Zeus announces himself with thunder, Apollo with golden light, or Poseidon with oceanic transformation, the goddess of love makes herself known first through feeling itself. The emotional landscape shifts before any change in the visual dreamscape, creating an atmosphere of anticipation that perfectly embodies desire's nature, the exquisite tension between absence and fulfillment. Gradually, the dream space materializes. Around me, a garden unlike any found in waking Greece, where flowers bloom in impossible combinations, and colors exist that have no names in human language. The air carries fragrances both familiar and unknown, rose and jasmine mingling with scents that seem to bypass ordinary perception and speak directly to something deeper than conscious mind. This synesthetic quality characterizes Aphrodite dreams, where sensory boundaries dissolve, allowing sound to be perceived as color, texture as emotion, scent as memory. We have always known each other, comes a voice both surrounding and within me. Though you may not remember our previous encounters, she appears not through dramatic materialization, but through a gradual focusing of attention. I realize she has been present all along, though my perception needed time to attune to her particular frequency of being. Unlike other deities who maintain clear distinction between themselves and the dreamer, Aphrodite creates a curious resonance that makes it momentarily difficult to distinguish where my awareness ends and her divine presence begins. Her appearance shifts subtly as I observe her, never settling into a single definitive form, but flowing between various embodiments of beauty, sometimes reflecting classical Greek ideals, other times manifesting standards from cultures beyond our borders, occasionally presenting beauty so unconventional it challenges all established aesthetic categories. This fluidity perfectly represents her essence as the principle of beauty itself rather than any particular manifestation of it. Most seek me for one aspect alone, she observes, her expression mixing amusement and compassion, forgetting that love encompasses far more than the single form they pursue. Indeed, Greek understanding of Aphrodite recognizes her multiple aspects: Pandemos governing common physical desire, Urania overseeing spiritual love, Epitragia channeling creative passion, among others. These aren't merely poetic distinctions, but reflect genuine variation in how her influence manifests through different types of attraction and connection. Her dream appearances often reveal aspects of love that the dreamer has overlooked or undervalued in waking life. The garden around us shifts in response to her movements, flowers opening or closing, colors intensifying or softening, fragrances changing in complex harmonies. Unlike the fixed dreamscapes of more static deities, Aphrodite's domain remains in constant gentle flux, mirroring the dynamic nature of desire and connection themselves. Your people create artificial boundaries, she notes, touching a flower that immediately transforms from simple white to complex iridescence, between beauty and love, between different forms of desire, between aesthetic appreciation and emotional connection. Yet in their dreams, they remember the original unity these experiences share. This observation illuminates a significant aspect of Greek dream experience: the nocturnal dissolution of categories that waking consciousness maintains around matters of love, beauty, and desire. Dreams regularly feature experiences that blend supposedly distinct emotions or attract dreamers to forms of beauty they might consciously reject or ignore. Aphrodite's influence reveals these artificial separations, temporarily restoring awareness of connections that exist beneath cultural constructions. Show me what I've forgotten, I request, understanding that her dream visitations typically offer wisdom through experience rather than abstract instruction. In response, she approaches and places her palm against my chest, just over the heart. The contact creates not merely physical sensation, but a blossoming of awareness that spreads throughout my dream body. I suddenly perceive connections previously invisible, golden threads extending from my heart outward, linking me to various people, places, creative pursuits, and natural elements. Some connections appear vibrant and actively maintained. Others have grown thin through neglect. Still others remain potential rather than actualized, glimmering with possibility rather than established relationship. All these are love. Aphrodite explains. Not merely romantic attachment or physical desire, but every form of meaningful connection that brings beauty into existence. This revelation addresses a common misconception reflected in many Greek attitudes toward Aphrodite: the tendency to associate her primarily or exclusively with romantic and sexual relationships. Her dream teachings frequently expand this limited understanding, revealing her governance over all forms of connection that create harmony, beauty, and meaning, including friendships, familial bonds, artistic inspirations, and spiritual devotions. As we move through the ever-shifting garden, I notice certain plants appear to grow directly from my footsteps, their forms and colors somehow reflecting aspects of my own nature, that remain unconscious in waking life. Potential beauties within you, Aphrodite identifies them. Qualities of relationship you haven't yet cultivated or expressed. This aspect of Aphrodite dreams often proves particularly significant in Greek experience. The revelation of latent capacities for connection and creation that the dreamer hasn't recognized or developed. Unlike Apollo's prophecies that reveal external events, or Athena's strategies that organize existing capabilities, Aphrodite's dream gifts frequently involve awakening dormant potential for new forms of relationship and expression. Why do you appear in dreams? I ask. Surely your influence operates just as powerfully in waking life. In wakefulness, your people often mistake effects for causes, she replies, her voice carrying tones that seem to resonate directly with the heart, rather than merely reaching the ears. They believe beauty creates love, when in truth, love reveals beauty. They imagine desire arises from perception, when perception itself is shaped by pre-existing connection. Dreams dissolve these misconceptions, allowing more direct experience of reality. This observation illuminates the philosophical significance of Aphrodite dreams in Greek understanding. They temporarily restore perception of natural priorities inverted by conventional thinking. Where waking consciousness perceives attraction as response to external qualities, dream experience reveals the pre-existing connections that make such perception possible in the first place. The dreamscape transforms again, the garden giving way to a shore where gentle waves touch the land in rhythmic patterns. All relationship exists at boundaries, Aphrodite explains, indicating the meeting of land and sea, where separate entities establish connection without losing their distinct nature. This coastal imagery frequently appears in Aphrodite dreams, recorded in temple archives, representing her domain as the creative boundary between separate identities. Unlike Dionysian dreams that dissolve individual consciousness or Apollonian ones that maintain rigid distinctions, Aphrodite's dream landscapes embody productive tension between separation and connection, the very dynamic that generates both desire and love. Many fear me, she observes with a hint of sadness. Believing surrender to beauty means loss of self. They don't understand that true connection strengthens identity, rather than diminishing it. Indeed, Greek cultural attitudes toward Aphrodite's influence often reflect ambivalence, celebrating the goddess in festivals and poetry, while simultaneously warning against excessive susceptibility to her power. Her dream visitations frequently address this fear directly, demonstrating through experience rather than argument how genuine connection enhances rather than threatens individual development. Curious aspect of Aphrodite dreams rarely discussed in public settings involves their physical effects. Unlike most divine dream encounters that remain primarily mental or spiritual, dreams featuring the love goddess often create genuine physiological responses that persist into waking life. Heightened sensitivity, altered breathing patterns, occasionally even dream-initiated pleasure that bridges sleeping and waking states. These experiences reflect Aphrodite's unique governance over the relationship between physical and spiritual aspects of human existence. In me, the supposed opposition between body and soul dissolves, she explains, seeming to read my thoughts. Physical experience becomes pathway to spiritual understanding. Spiritual connection manifests through embodied pleasure. This integration threatens those who require separation to maintain their understanding of reality. Before our encounter concludes, Aphrodite approaches once more, this time framing my face between her palms. The contact creates a curious sensation of both expansion and concentration, awareness simultaneously extending beyond ordinary boundaries, while focusing with unprecedented clarity on the present moment. Remember this when you wake, she says, her voice now coming from both outside and within me. Beauty isn't merely what pleases the eye, but what awakens the heart. Love isn't simply what connects you to others, but what reveals connection already existing. Desire isn't what draws you toward external objects, but what guides you toward completion of internal patterns. Her touch creates a final transformation in the dream, not of surroundings, but of perception itself. Suddenly, everything I observe appears illuminated from within, radiating beauty that seems intrinsic rather than applied, essential rather than decorative. This altered perception represents Aphrodite's most profound gift, the capacity to recognize beauty as fundamental reality rather than mere surface appearance. This vision remains available always, she promises, as her distinct presence begins to dissolve back into the general fabric of the dream. The waking consciousness veils it with practical concerns and cultural constructions. Return to me in dreams when you need remembrance of what truly connects all existence. As with previous divine dream encounters, Aphrodite doesn't simply vanish, but transforms, her specific presence gradually merging with the dream's emotional atmosphere, while leaving behind a distinct quality of awareness that persists even as the dreamscape itself begins to shift toward new territories. Unlike lessons from more cognitively oriented deities, Aphrodite's dream teachings operate primarily through transformed perception and emotional recalibration, rather than specific information or instruction. Her influence continues reverberating through subsequent dream experiences, and potentially into waking consciousness, as altered sensitivity to beauty and connection rather than discrete memory of encounter. This lingering effect explains why Greek dream interpreters consider Aphrodite dreams particularly significant for their ongoing influence, rather than their immediate content. Where other divine dream communications may deliver specific messages requiring prompt action, dreams featuring the goddess of love typically initiate gradual transformations in how the dreamer perceives and relates to all aspects of existence, changes that unfold over time rather than manifesting in single decisions or behaviors. The dream landscape darkens, not with night's gentle progression, but with a more fundamental absence. Light doesn't diminish so much as withdraw, as if returning to its source and leaving the dream realm in primordial shadow. The ground beneath me grows firm, then hard as stone, the air cooling until each breath becomes visible. Sound diminishes until silence itself becomes a presence rather than an absence. This distinctive transformation signals the rarest and perhaps most significant of divine dream encounters. Few mortals experience dreams of Hades, ruler of the underworld, lord of all that exists beneath consciousness and beyond life. Unlike his Olympian siblings who actively seek human attention through dreams and visions, Hades rarely initiates contact with the living. When he does appear in dreams, Greek tradition considers it an event of profound importance, not merely communication but initiation into mysteries normally reserved for the dead. Darkness continues gathering, not chaotic but ordered, creating an environment of perfect clarity despite absence of conventional illumination. I perceive shapes and structures with unusual precision, though no visible light source explains this capacity. This paradoxical seeing without light characterizes authentic Hades dreams, distinguishing them from ordinary nightmares or anxiety-produced death images. "You have not summoned me," comes a voice that seems to emerge from the stone beneath my feet, rather than the air around me. Few do intentionally. Hades materializes not through dramatic entrance, but through gradual revelation of what was already present yet unperceived. Unlike Zeus, who transforms the dream to accommodate his majesty, or Poseidon, who merges with the dreamer's consciousness, Hades simply removes the barriers that usually prevent mortals from recognizing his constant proximity. This subtle manifestation perfectly embodies his nature, not distant but unseen, not absent but beyond ordinary perception. His appearance contradicts popular depictions of a fearsome death god. He presents neither as skeletal horror nor as savage abductor, but as a mature man of regal bearing whose features combine severity with unexpected gentleness. His expression communicates not cruelty, but perfect comprehension, the face of one who has witnessed every possible human experience without being consumed by any of them. "Your kind usually encounters me only once," he observes, his voice producing no echo despite the apparent cavern-like surroundings. Yet here you are before your appointed time, conscious and questioning. This acknowledgement highlights the exceptional nature of conscious Hades dreams. While all humans eventually meet the underworld lord, experiencing his domain with awareness, while still living represents a privilege traditionally reserved for heroes and initiates of certain mystery cults. Such dreams often precede significant psychological transformations or spiritual developments, rather than indicating literal approaching death. I govern not just physical ending, Hades continues, apparently reading my unspoken thoughts, but all transitions beyond conscious control, the necessary surrenders that allow new forms to emerge. He gestures toward our surroundings, which I now perceive as an immense cavern whose walls are lined with countless niches. Each contains what appears to be a seed, shell, or cocoon in various stages of transformation. Some recently formed, others on the verge of opening. Death and birth, dormancy and germination, forgetting and revelation, all aspects of the same process, all within my domain. This expanded understanding of Hades' governance corrects a common misperception that limits his role to death alone. Greek mystical traditions recognize him as lord of all transformative processes that require passage through darkness and dissolution, including psychological death-rebirth experiences that reshape identity without ending physical life. Why do so few dreams include you? I ask, surprised by my own directness with this most formidable deity. Few can bear my presence with consciousness intact, he replies without offense. Most either flee into waking or descend into terror that prevents genuine encounter. Yet all humans dream of my realm nightly, though they rarely remember. This revelation illuminates a paradox of Greek dream experience. While dreams of specific underworld locations or deceased individuals occur regularly, direct encounters with Hades himself remain exceptionally rare in both personal experience and cultural record. Dream interpreters attribute this rarity not to his absence, but to powerful psychological resistance against conscious confrontation with mortality's ultimate authority. As we converse, I notice curious aspects of this dream environment. Despite apparent darkness, I perceive everything with unusual clarity. Despite underground setting, I breathe without difficulty. Despite Hades' intimidating authority, I feel neither terror nor discomfort, but rather a profound settling, as if some perpetually maintained tension has finally released. You experience the peace of acceptance, Hades explains, again responding to unspoken thought. Most humans exhaust themselves fighting against inevitabilities under my governance. Mortality, loss, surrender, transformation. Yet when genuinely encountered rather than reflexively resisted, these necessities bring not suffering, but liberation. This insight reflects the core wisdom available through authentic Hades dreams. Not escape from mortality, but reconciliation with it. Not denial of limitation, but discovery of the freedom paradoxically available through its acceptance. Such dreams often produce significant shifts in the dreamer's relationship with fear, control, and temporal existence itself. Hades leads me deeper into his domain. Past regions that correspond to familiar underworld locations described in mythology. The judging pavilion, the fields of asphodel, the waters of forgetting. Yet we continue beyond these better-known territories, into spaces rarely glimpsed even in exceptional dreams. We finally arrive at what appears to be the very foundation of existence, a vast cavern whose floor consists of perfectly still black water, reflecting the crystalline ceiling above. The mirrored images create an infinite regression, both upward and downward, eliminating any clear distinction between heights and depths. This is the convergence point, Hades explains, where opposites reveal their underlying unity. Life and death, conscious and unconscious, remembered and forgotten, all meet here as complementary aspects of single processes, rather than genuine oppositions. This revelation represents the deepest teaching available through Hades' dreams, not merely acceptance of mortality, but recognition of its intrinsic relationship with vitality itself. Greek mystery traditions teach that genuine understanding of life becomes possible only through confrontation with its inseparable complement, just as authentic courage emerges through honest engagement with fear rather than its denial. Before our encounter concludes, Hades does something unexpected. He kneels beside the still black water and gestures for me to look into its surface. Rather than reflecting my current appearance, the water reveals successive images of myself, at different ages, past, present, and future phases including eventual decay and death. Most humans perceive only fragments of themselves, he observes, as I witness my own complete temporal existence. They identify with certain phases while rejecting or fearing others. True self-knowledge requires embracing the complete cycle. This mirror of complete identity represents Hades' most significant gift to those who dream of him. Not escape from mortality, but expansion of self-recognition beyond its usual temporal limitations. Such dreams often produce lasting transformation in how the dreamer relates to their own past and future, dissolving artificial boundaries between life phases that ordinary consciousness maintains. As our encounter reaches its natural conclusion, Hades does not simply disappear or drive me from his realm. Instead, he places one hand briefly on my shoulder, a gesture not of claiming, but of acknowledgement. "You will return to me eventually," he says, "as all do. But you may carry this glimpse of reconciliation back into your waking hours, if you choose to remember rather than forget." This final choice highlights the distinctive challenge of Hades' dreams in Greek experience. Unlike other divine dream encounters that impose themselves on memory, underworld visions often fade rapidly upon waking unless deliberately preserved through immediate recording or ritual acknowledgement. This tendency toward forgetting reflects natural psychological resistance against conscious integration of mortality awareness. As the dream begins shifting toward other territories, Hades and his realm gradually recede, not vanishing entirely, but returning to their usual position, just beyond conscious perception. What remains is not specific information or instruction, but a fundamental reorientation toward existence itself. A perspective that embraces, rather than denies, the full cycle of formation, dissolution, and reformation that structures all life. Dawn approaches in the dream world, that liminal hour when night's divine visitations begin to fade and mortal consciousness prepares to reassert itself. Yet before waking claims me fully, I find myself in a space unlike any encountered during previous divine dream meetings. This environment appears neither fully Olympian nor chthonic, but distinctly human. A circular chamber whose walls display countless inscribed tablets, whose shelves hold scrolls in careful arrangement, whose central space contains a tripod supporting a bronze bowl of still water. A figure emerges from between the rows of tablets, not a god, but a mortal woman of indeterminate age. Her simple white chiton marked with embroidered symbols I recognize as connected to dream interpretation. Her only adornment is a slender circlet of silver leaves resting on gray-streaked hair, and her eyes hold the particular clarity of those who regularly traverse the boundaries between ordinary and extraordinary perception. "I am Aristonic of Delphi," she introduces herself, Onirocrates to those who seek understanding of divine dream language. "I have entered the domain not of gods themselves but of their human interpreters, those rare individuals who dedicate their lives to mastering the complex symbolic system through which divine wisdom manifests in mortal dreams." These dream priests and dream priestesses stand at the critical intersection between divine communication and human comprehension, transforming the often cryptic content of significant dreams into practical guidance for individual lives and community decisions. "The gods you have encountered speak directly only to few," Aristonice explains, moving toward the central water bowl. "For most mortals, divine dream messages require translation from symbolic to literal language, from image to application, from experience to meaning." She gestures toward the countless tablets lining the chamber walls. Each records a significant dream and its eventual manifestation in waking life. Through generations of careful observation and correlation, we have developed systems for deciphering the patterns through which gods communicate while we sleep. This collection represents the accumulated wisdom of professional dream interpreters, oneirokriti, whose services were highly valued throughout ancient Greece. From humble village wise women interpreting ordinary citizens' dreams to renowned specialists consulted by generals before battles or statesmen before crucial negotiations, these interpreters formed an essential link between divine guidance and human action. Our art involves multiple methods, Aristonite continues, inviting me to observe as she demonstrates beside the water bowl. Some dreams speak through direct symbolism. A falling crown representing loss of authority, a flowering branch indicating new growth after difficulty. Others communicate through wordplay and linguistic connections that require knowledge of regional dialects and cultural references. She dips her fingertips into the still water, creating ripples that somehow form recognizable patterns rather than random disturbances. Most challenging are dreams that combine multiple levels of meaning. Literal, symbolic, prophetic, and psychological dimensions woven together in single images or scenarios. This multi-layered approach explains why significant dreams in Greek experience often receive different interpretations from different specialists. Temple interpreters might emphasize theological dimensions, while secular oneirokriti focus on practical applications, and philosophical schools examine psychological implications. Each perspective reveals different aspects of the same divine communication. How does one become an interpreter of dreams? I ask, studying the systematic arrangement of tablets and scrolls that suggests generations of careful methodology rather than mere intuitive guessing. Some inherit the capacity, Aristonite answers, born into families that have served as intermediaries between gods and dreamers for generations. Others discover natural affinity for the language of dreams and seek apprenticeship with established interpreters. The most renowned come to the vocation through divine selection, often marked by recurring dreams of instruction from Hermes or Apollo, the primary patrons of divinatory arts. Historical records confirm this diversity of paths. The famous dream interpreter Antiphon of Athens began as a tragic poet before discovering his remarkable ability to extract meaning from others' dreams. Artemidorus of Dallas traveled throughout the Mediterranean for decades, collecting thousands of dreams and their outcomes before composing his systematic dream interpretation manual. The renowned female interpreter Pythias reportedly received her techniques directly from Apollo in a series of instructional dreams that continued through her adolescence. Regardless of origin, Aristonike continues, all true oneirokriti undergo rigorous training in multiple disciplines. We study traditional symbol systems preserved from ancient times. We learn medical knowledge to distinguish dreams arising from bodily conditions from those carrying divine messages. We master psychological principles governing how individual character and circumstance affect dream content. Most importantly, we develop the discernment to recognize authentic divine communication amid the ordinary mental activities of sleep. This comprehensive training explains why reputable dream interpreters commanded substantial fees and maintained positions of significant influence in Greek society. Far from practicing mere superstition, they synthesized historical knowledge, psychological insight, theological understanding, and practical wisdom into a specialized expertise. Aristonike guides me toward a section of the chamber where several specialized instruments rest on a carved wooden table. Different types of significant dreams require different interpretive approaches, she explains, indicating each tool in turn. She lifts a small bronze mirror with symbolic engravings around its rim. For dreams featuring divine figures, we use reflection techniques, examining not just the deity's appearance and actions, but how these reflect the dreamer's relationship with that particular divine aspect. Next, she indicates a complex arrangement of knotted chords in various colors. For dreams involving journeys or transitions, we trace pattern connections, following how seemingly separate elements relate through hidden pathways of meaning. Finally, she presents a tablet inscribed with concentric circles containing Greek letters in careful arrangement. For prophetic dreams, we apply temporal analysis, determining which elements reference past influences, present circumstances, or future possibilities. These specialized methods reflect the sophisticated analytical systems developed by Greek dream interpreters over centuries of practice. Unlike simplistic dream dictionaries that assign fixed meanings to standard symbols, authentic oneirocritic techniques recognize the contextual, personal, and cultural dimensions that influence how divine communications manifest through individual dreamers. The greatest challenge in our art, Aristonike acknowledges, comes not from interpretation itself but from distinguishing between categories of dreams. Not all require our services. She indicates different sections of the chamber, each containing tablets organized according to distinct dream types. Enhypnia are ordinary dreams arising from the dreamer's recent experiences, physical condition, or preoccupations. These rarely contain divine messages requiring interpretation. Moving to another section, she continues. Phantasmata are brief, often disturbing images appearing during the transition between wakefulness and sleep. These sometimes contain warnings, but require different interpretive techniques than fully formed dreams. Reaching the chamber's far side, she indicates an area where the tablets appear more ornately decorated, some bearing gold or silver inlays. Chromatismoi and theorematikoi are direct divine communications, the former through verbal messages, the latter through clear symbolic visions. These require less interpretation than confirmation and contextual guidance for appropriate response. This careful categorization reflects the Greek understanding of dreams as varied phenomena rather than a single type of experience. Professional interpreters were expected to recognize these distinctions before attempting analysis, sometimes refusing payment for interpreting dreams they identified as merely physiological or psychological rather than divinely significant. Before our encounter concludes, Aristonike leads me to the chamber's center, where the water bowl still displays the ripple patterns she created earlier. Observe how the initial disturbance creates patterns that extend far beyond its origin point, she instructs. Divine dream, communications function similarly. The immediate experience resonates outward through the dreamer's life, affecting decisions, relationships, and understanding in ways that continue unfolding long after waking. This perspective explains why Greek culture treated significant dreams with such seriousness, not as fleeting curiosities, but as initiatory experiences whose implications might develop throughout a lifetime. Professional interpreters often maintained ongoing relationships with clients, helping them integrate dream guidance through multiple life phases rather than simply providing one-time interpretations. We serve as bridges, Aristonike summarizes, helping mortals comprehend divine communications that might otherwise remain mysterious or forgotten. The gods speak through dreams in languages both universal and deeply personal. Our task is finding the translation that honors both dimensions. As she speaks these final words, I notice the chamber beginning to fade around us. Not disappearing entirely, but becoming gradually transparent, as if revealing its continuous presence behind the veil of ordinary perception. This subtle transition perfectly represents the Greek understanding of dream interpretation itself, not creating meaning that wasn't present, but revealing connections and significance already embedded within the dream experience. Remember when you wake, Aristonike's voice follows as her form and the dream chamber continue fading. That understanding dreams requires both knowledge and humility, both systematic method and intuitive resonance. The divine speaks through symbols because some truths transcend literal language, revealing themselves fully only to those who learn to perceive with both mind and heart simultaneously. This balanced approach encapsulates the Greek tradition of dream interpretation at its best, neither rigidly dogmatic nor wildly subjective, neither dismissively rational nor credulously superstitious, but thoughtfully engaged with dreams as Meaningful communications requiring careful, multidimensional analysis to yield their full significance for both individual lives and collective wisdom. Gentle light begins to filter through my dream consciousness, the approaching dawn gradually dissolving the divine dreamscapes I've traversed throughout this remarkable night. As the boundaries between sleep and wakefulness grow increasingly permeable, I find myself not in another god's domain but in a space that seems to exist precisely at the threshold between divine and mortal realms, a marble portico overlooking both the familiar landscape of Greece and the distant heights of Olympus simultaneously. Around me gather shadowy figures I gradually recognize as philosophers, poets, physicians, and statesmen from across Greek history. Some from generations past, others from times yet to come. They speak not to me directly, but to one another, their conversations creating a tapestry of wisdom that seems to encompass the entire legacy of divine dream experience in Greek thought and culture. Dreams revealed the soul's dual citizenship, observes a figure I recognize as Heraclitus, the philosopher of flux and fire. We belong both to the visible world of waking consciousness and the invisible realm where gods communicate through symbols and direct experience. The boundary between is more permeable than we imagine in daylight hours. This fundamental insight, that human consciousness naturally inhabits multiple levels of reality, emerged directly from Greeks' experiences of divine dreams. Unlike traditions that sharply separate spiritual and material realms, our understanding recognizes continuous connection between divine and human consciousness, with dreams serving as the primary medium of exchange. The gods speak not just to special individuals but to all who learn their language, adds another figure, a woman wearing the robes of a Pythian priestess. Dream communication democratized divine wisdom, making it potentially available to every person regardless of status or education. The Hierophant might interpret, but the experience itself could come to anyone. Indeed, while prophetic traditions like the Delphic oracle remained under institutional control, dreams offered direct divine contact without priestly mediation. This accessibility profoundly shaped Greek religious experience, creating a culture where personal divine encounter complemented rather than threatened public religious observance. What we learned through divine dreams, speaks a physician I recognize from his staff entwined with serpents, is that consciousness extends beyond ordinary waking boundaries. The soul perceives and knows in ways that transcend rational thought, alone, a principle essential to understanding both health and disease. This medical insight transformed Greek approaches to healing, which came to recognize connections between physical conditions and psychological states invisible to waking perception but accessible through dream experience. Asclepian healing temples institutionalized this understanding, deliberately inducing therapeutic dreams that activated healing resources beyond conscious control. The greatest gift of divine dreams contributes a gray-eyed philosopher recognizable as Plato was revealing layers of reality inaccessible to sensory perception alone. When Morpheus shapes a form perfectly mirroring someone distant or departed, when Apollo shows events yet to unfold, when Persephone guides us between realms, these experiences demand philosophical frameworks that accommodate multiple levels of reality. This observation illuminates how dream experiences directly influenced Greek philosophical development. Plato's theory of forms, with its distinction between imperfect physical copies and perfect metaphysical originals, echoes the dream experience of perceiving archetypal realities beyond ordinary sensation. His concept of anamnesis, knowledge as remembrance of what the soul knew before birth, parallels how divine dreams often feel like remembering wisdom we somehow already possessed. Divine dreams taught us that truth wears many faces, notes, a poet crowned with laurel. Apollo might reveal through clear prophecy what Dionysus communicates through ecstatic dissolution, what Athena conveys through strategic insight, what Aphrodite expresses through beauty's resonance. Each pathway accesses genuine wisdom through different aspects of human capacity, This pluralistic epistemology, the recognition that different ways of knowing access different dimensions of truth, emerges directly from the variety of divine dream experiences. Where cultures with more monolithic religious frameworks often privileged single paths to knowledge, Greek thought embraced multiple approaches as complementary rather than contradictory. Perhaps most importantly, observes a statesman wearing a simple headband, dreams taught us to balance rational governance with insight from beyond reason. Even Pericles consulted dream interpreters before crucial decisions, recognizing that divine wisdom might penetrate where human calculation falters. This practical integration of dream wisdom into decision-making at all levels, from household choices to military strategy to state policy, distinguished Greek civilization. Unlike societies that either rejected dreams as meaningless or followed them blindly, our culture developed sophisticated methods for incorporating dream insights into rational deliberation, neither dismissing nor surrendering to them. The divine dream tradition created a culture uniquely attentive to inner experience. Adds a figure I recognize as a mystery cult hierophant. We learn to attend not just to external events, but to internal landscapes, developing vocabulary and methods for navigating the soul's territory with the same precision we chart physical geography. This psychological sophistication, the capacity to distinguish between different types of inner experiences and trace their connections to both personal and collective meaning, emerged largely through careful attention to dream states. Greek vocabulary for emotional and mental states often derived from terms originally used to describe dream experiences, creating nuanced language for interior life. As dawn light continues strengthening, these philosophical reflections begin interweaving with more personal observations about divine dream legacy. I face death differently after dreaming of Hades, confesses an elderly man. Not with fear eliminated, but with fear transformed into appropriate reverence for necessary transition. The terror dissolved when directly encountered rather than endlessly avoided. Athena's strategic dreams taught me to perceive patterns invisible to ordinary analysis, shares a military commander. Not bypassing logical assessment, but complementing it with intuitive recognition of underlying structures and relationships. After Aphrodite visited my dreams, adds a sculptor, I understood beauty as relationship rather than mere form. The resonance between perceiver and perceived that awakens recognition of underlying harmony. These personal testimonies reveal how divine dreams shape not just abstract thought, but lived experience, transforming how individuals related to fundamental aspects of existence, mortality, decision-making, aesthetic appreciation, identity itself. The dreams didn't replace rational understanding but expanded its context, connecting analytical thinking to deeper wells of meaning and motivation. As full daylight approaches, drawing me inexorably toward waking consciousness, a final figure appears beside me on the marble portico. Neither god nor historical personage, but a simple dream interpreter, similar to Aristonicus, yet somehow representing all who've served as bridges between divine dream wisdom and human application. Thomas' legacy continues through you, this interpreter observes. Though temples fall and beliefs transform, the pathways open between realms remain accessible. The gods speak still through dream symbols, adapted to each era's understanding, maintaining connection between divine wisdom and human awareness despite changing vocabularies. This continuity explains why Greek dream traditions continued influencing thought long after temples to Zeus or Asclepius crumbled. The core insight that consciousness extends beyond waking awareness, connecting with sources of wisdom transcending individual perspective, persisted through transformations in how these experiences were interpreted and integrated, from Artemidorus's systematic dream analysis to Byzantine Christian dream theology, from Renaissance Neoplatonic dream theory to modern psychological dream interpretation. The fundamental Greek discovery endured. Dreams offer potential connection to wisdom beyond ordinary constraints, whether understood as communication from external divine sources, or access to deeper aspects of consciousness itself. Remember as you wake, the interpreter concludes as the dream begins its final dissolution, that the boundary between dreaming and wakefulness is itself a cultural creation, more permeable than commonly believed. The gods who walked through, your dreams remain accessible through that permeability, though you call them by different names in different eras. As morning consciousness begins asserting itself, I carry forward not just memories of specific divine dream encounters, but transformed understanding of consciousness itself. Recognition that the waking state represents one mode of awareness, among many, neither exclusive nor necessarily privileged in access to truth. This perspective, perhaps more than any specific dream content, constitutes the enduring legacy of divine dreams in Greek thought. The gods who walked through dreams fundamentally shaped how we understand the relationship between human and divine, between conscious and unconscious awareness, between rational analysis and intuitive understanding. Their footprints remain visible in our philosophy, psychology, art, literature, and spiritual practices, not as historical curiosities, but as living pathways connecting contemporary experience to perennial wisdom that continues flowing through the permeable boundary between ordinary awareness and the extraordinary dimensions dream consciousness reveals. The gods who walked through dreams fundamentally shaped how we understand the relationship between human and divine, between conscious and unconscious awareness, between rational analysis and intuitive understanding. Their footprints remain visible in our philosophy, psychology, art, literature, and spiritual practices, not as historical curiosities but as living pathways connecting contemporary experience to perennial wisdom that continues flowing through the permeable boundary between ordinary awareness and the extraordinary dimensions dream consciousness reveals.